Holy Beast Tamer is an extremely rare title. The Tamer can harness the power of monsters and beasts that are also called phantoms. On the outskirts lies the village of Griella. When a child turns 12 here, the priest decides the child's future path. Each child is told in detail about the possibilities of that chosen activity. Rock froze when he realized he had become a tamer of holy beasts. Amy genuinely admired the boy's calling. She thought becoming a tamer of sacred beasts was really cool. The new tamer looked confused and told her the priests knew nothing about it. Amy assured him that everything was fine. Isaac and Kara were confident Rock could handle his new assignment. They smiled at him and offered encouraging words, and the boy felt relieved and grateful. Isaac will become the world's greatest gladiator. Amy will become the world's greatest mage. Carol will be a priestess who can heal any wound. Rock will become an outstanding tamer of holy beasts. The friends decided to combine their unique abilities and talents to form the top-level S-rank team. The boys stood shoulder to shoulder, hands raised high, supporting one another even though each had to follow a unique path and a different calling. The boy wanted to enjoy every moment of their journey together, so he made it his mission to support his friends at every stage and help make each of their dreams come true. After 3 years, Rock finally came home, but as soon as he stepped inside, he heard a conversation that shook him to his core, and he learned his friends were planning to kick him out for good. Isaac said the young man claimed he'd become a tamer of holy beasts, but so far he hasn't gained a single truly powerful beast, and all he can do is carry things and do simple tasks anyone could handle. Amy tried to object, reminding him they had always acted together, but the boy cut her off and said their team had become a Class S party that people admired and wanted to join. They can no longer take someone into battle who offers no benefit. They already had a brave hero in mind who wanted to join the team. It was a great chance to strengthen the roster. This hero could make the team kings if he joins, so they must take him because he will strongly shape the village's development and bring them closer to their long-held dreams. And Amy agreed with the others, while the boy at the threshold was deeply upset. Tomorrow they will invite that hero to the Extinction Dungeon, and together they will clear it and say goodbye to Roku. Isaac asked Kara whether she was really going to take that dress to the dungeon tomorrow. Rather than risk leaving it unattended, she took the dress with her. She warned her friend to prevent anyone from complaining about her needing an extra bag. That ended their discussion. The young man asked Amy to tell Rock everything in person, but she asked him to wait a moment. She wanted to say something else, and the quiet boy hiding nearby listened to the whole conversation with growing fear and anxiety, his face going dark and his heart tightening with pain and despair. His friends said the holy beast had not yet crossed his path. Those given a different calling were lucky. Using his divine power, Rock gradually improved the equipment's base stats and strengthened his friends' support magic. He handled every extra task, cooked great meals, carried heavy bags, entertained by dancing, scouted the right places, and negotiated with guild representatives. He could not understand why he was suddenly treated so coldly and unfairly. Brave Kid introduced himself warmly and said he was honored to join such a renowned squad and enter the dungeon with them. Rock seemed pleased that the hero would go with them, but Isaac turned away sharply and made his displeasure with the situation clear. The boy said he bowed to God, who gave such wonderful talents to the beautiful women. The newcomer's compliment and polite manners pleased the young man and made him feel sympathy for the new team member. The hero asked his assistant to handle the bags carefully because they contained items the boy could never afford in his whole life. The surprised boy immediately regretted his words, and Amy hurried to say he was not an assistant but a full member of the team. The newcomer stared at her in amazement, puzzled how the young man had joined such a renowned group. The kid assumed the boy was just a servant after seeing him carry heavy loads, so Kara stepped in to ease the awkwardness and urged them to move on. Before they set off, Isaac casually offered to let Kid look at his unique weapon, a dragon-slaying sword with a glorious history, said to have been personally given to him by the king and able to defeat a dragon. Widely regarded as a great artifact and nearly impossible to make, the sword suddenly bore a tiny, nearly invisible crack that Rock noticed. He was not allowed to speak. Isaac ordered that the boy be left alone and told the other boys to prepare to leave quickly. Just before entering the dungeon, the friends cheerfully discussed their strategy and agreed they had to take care of each other because they could only capture the dungeon together, with Kara taking the role of healer. They raised their swords and prepared to move forward while Rock stood aside. A familiar childhood scene reappeared before the young man, bringing a sense of déjà vu. Overcome by memory, he tried not to cry as the old pain of loneliness and uselessness returned. They always supported each other, whether joy or sorrow. The boy had dreamed of making their shared dreams real, but now it seems he can no longer help his friends reach their goals. Inside the extinction dungeon, the friends kept shouting at Rock, calling him slow and telling him to hurry, as if he were holding up their progress like a turtle. With his sense of terrain skill, the young man could estimate the locations and numbers of monsters in the dungeon. With the map as a guide, they could reach their destination without encountering any enemies. The shortest route is not always the best. Isaac snapped at the boy and ordered him to hurry, leaving no chance to explain. Feeling guilty, the gladiator apologized to Kid and promised to take him to the boss right away. Confidently, the young man said the number of monsters in the dungeon had dropped a lot since his last visit, and after calming everyone, he added that even a single henchman could safely go ahead, assuring them the route was secure. Isaac asked if the man had been here before. Kid confirmed he had visited the dungeon soon after it appeared. He had gone with a self-proclaimed adventurer, but barely escaped death when danger struck. After that, the boy vowed not to enter dungeons with anyone he considered weak or unprepared, since he knew how hard it was to rely on such companions. He ordered Rock to deal with the monsters. Rock began the attack. Isaac raised his voice again, annoyed at the boy's slow pace and insisting they move faster. The request was simple and clear. Children stepped in, quietly pulling his noisy companion aside to tell him the guide was not taking the shortest route. The news shocked everyone on the expedition. The young man loudly accused his companion of deliberately taking a roundabout route to get revenge, saying he had led them on detours, as if playing a spiteful game to annoy the group and make the journey harder. When the boy tried to explain himself, Amy slapped him hard in the face. She asked him if he didn't realize they weren't here to have fun. The young man realized that even this girl was not on his side. He had always explained his roots, telling the others it was the way to avoid encounters with groups of monsters, and everyone trusted him and accepted the inconvenience for the sake of safety, but over time that trust began to fade. The boys insisted on taking the shortest route, knowing it would inevitably lead to many monsters, and said it was the boy himself who had to deal with the threat. Amy told the gladiator to focus on his opponents, expecting more enemies to arrive soon. The boy could not tell when his childhood friends began treating him so differently. The squad considers him a completely useless member. The whole team halted before an enormous, awe-inspiring door whose size was staggering, standing frozen as they felt the weight of the next step and the mystery beyond those gates. Breathless after the long journey, the boys realized the dungeon's powerful boss was hiding behind this huge door. Rock suggested they take a rest. When people misunderstood him, he repeated it. Some accused him of causing the others tiredness. Amy said he did not realize things were only getting more dangerous over time. Kid felt stupid because he could not find his place in the group. The boy called Isaac an idiot. Isaac asked why the boy was talking down to them and then asked the girls for permission. After a long hesitation over when to end the relationship with the boy, their patience ran out and they decided to exclude Rock from the group permanently as soon as they left the dungeon. The plan was to officially add Kid to the squad, as he had proven to be a reliable and useful companion. The boy understood the group's decision, and everyone supported it unanimously. With renewed strength and confidence, they move into the final test, declare themselves the strongest and most united team, and stand ready to defeat the formidable boss. A familiar childhood image reappeared before the boy's eyes, as if time had turned back, giving him a strange sense of déjà vu. They asked him to look after a girl named Kara, and he expected to play a small, mostly unnoticed but important role. A dungeon boss stepped out before the heroes, a massive gray wolf whose gaze radiated menace and power. Normally, gray wolves are common dungeon bosses that even E-class adventurers can defeat. This one is different. Its fur shimmers silver, which means it is Fenrir, a mythical creature from the highest ranks of the monster hierarchy. This monster is legendary, and even an S-rank seeker must give it their all to defeat it. Retreating quietly, without risking exposure or drawing Fenrir's attention, would have been the only sensible choice, but Isaac showed overconfidence and arrogance, insisting it was just an ordinary gray wolf the group and the kid could handle. Despite Rock's efforts to stop the boys from making a rash attack, his friends ignored his warnings and rushed into battle. The consequences were devastating, and the whole group stood stunned as they realized the full scale of the threat looming over them. The kid swung a legendary weapon, but it crumbled on contact with Fenrir's armored skin, proving powerless against the boss's might. Realizing the method did not work on the enemy, the boy watched as the wolf let out a loud howl. The monster's gaze made the boys tremble and took away their will to resist. Kara suffered most, frozen with horror and collapsing to the floor, too weak to move. Kid urged the others to retreat at once, saying that despite his toughness, he could no longer face the wolf because his weapon had broken. Isaac refused to run, saying the fight had not even started. The monster proved so powerful that even asleep it suffered almost no harm, so the heroes, seeing resistance was pointless, chose to flee at once. Annoyed by the turn of events, Gladiator had to accept the group's decision. Rock saw the whole team move quickly to the rear, fleeing the angry creature. The kid instantly plunged his blade into the man running beside him and said gloomily that this was the role circumstances had assigned him. His face hardened into a cruel, malicious expression that showed the full depth of his hatred. The sword was the king's reserve, and the young man let Roku keep the other items and valuables, saying it was a final gift before his death. The boy then approached Isaac and asked to be accepted as a full member of the group, and Isaac agreed. Sitting on the ground, the boy could not understand why his friends had been so cruel to him. The beast charged straight at him, making death feel imminent. Amy's behavior hurt her even more, as she ran past without concern, showed no sympathy or loyalty, and coldly told him to forgive her. Memories of conversations with his friends returned to the boy, promises to grow stronger and support one another through any trial, and he remembered Kara's trusting look as she asked for his protection, and Amy proudly saying their team had come together because of him. He couldn't forget, and his heart broke at being betrayed by those closest to him. Refusing to accept the end, the boy was abandoned by those who had promised to help and left alone to face the monster. Fenrir opened his huge jaws wide, ready to swallow his victim whole, while the boy on the ground, despite the mortal danger, could not stop crying from a deep loneliness and sense of injustice after being abandoned by those he loved. The monster reasoned aloud that people could be very cruel and leave a tribesman to die alone. He promised the boy a quick death so he would not have time to feel pain. At those words, the young man slowly turned and stared into his killer's eyes, bewildered and terrified of the inevitable end. The boy asked the monster whether he could speak human language. Stunned, the monster realized Rock understood his speech. Apparently, the ability to understand animals' speech was a unique skill of the tamers of holy beasts, and Fenrir asked the youth if he wanted to continue the fight now that the monster was free, since the battle would be entertaining. Rock politely declined the duel, saying he hoped the monster would let him live. Wolf wanted to pass the time playfully and complained about the unbearable boredom of this dungeon level, which he could not escape on his own. Determined not to die during the monster's dubious entertainment, he made an unexpected decision and quickly took Isaac's breastplate from his bag. The young man threw it at the predator with a sure, steady aim. The breastplate shone brightly in the dungeon's dim light. Drawn by the smell of metal and magic, the wolf grew wary but curious about the new toy. The wolf caught the object and looked at the young man, confused why he was throwing things. The boy threw the breastplate again. Curious, the predator watched the object move, caught it again, but could not grasp the human's cunning intent. Confused, the wolf had no idea what was happening, but the new playful game brought him great joy. Childhood memories of caring for pets let the young man take the lead and entertain Fenrir. Remembering the monster had said it could not leave the floor because of a magical barrier even it could not destroy, the young man risked proposing a deal to turn the situation to his advantage. Cautiously, the young man suggested that if the wolf escaped, he would agree to go on a journey with the wolf. The wolf laughed, finding it very amusing. After thinking, he admitted the idea appealed to him. Fenrir never lied. The hero was stunned by the words he heard. For the first time, he imagined what friendship with such a creature would be like. A voice in his head told him Fenrir wanted to be his friend, and hinted it would take the first step toward true friendship. At first, he did not fully understand what he heard, but he remembered reading earlier about the tamer's profession, which described in detail a voice appearing in the mind. Changes were happening now. The young man had long found a loyal friend in the powerful creature Fenrir, who, sensing his new master's mood, shuddered slightly to show his consent and readiness to serve his new owner. The voice told him the wolf had become his friend because he had met all the requirements, and he was given access to the mini garden of monsters, so his pets could now transform. But the voice kept echoing in his head, and the young man did not understand what was happening or what the changes would mean. Determined to learn the consequences of the changes, the young man watched his pet closely as Fenrir gradually began to overflow with unprecedented power. Introducing himself as Loxistel, the boy greeted his new companion and said he was glad to meet Fenrir, and the pet was also glad to meet him. He warned that calling him Fenrir was wrong because the name belonged to the whole species, not to him specifically. The new pet kept insisting on a worthy, memorable name that showed his uniqueness and strength, and the owner thought hard to find the perfect nickname that reflected his four-legged friend's character and potential. The owner solemnly announced he would name his pet Lucky and asked the wolf for his opinion. Fenrir listened carefully, repeated the new name aloud, and judged its sound and subtle pronunciation. Delighted with the chosen name, the new friend felt truly happy and saw himself as the proud owner of such a splendid title. The treasure chest that appeared drew the young man's full attention. It became clear that befriending Fenrir required defeating the dungeon's strongest resident. His curiosity would not let him miss the chance to examine the mysterious box. Inside the chest were two unusual items, a bracelet and a heavy leather collar trimmed in bright red, and Lucky impatiently demanded that the new owner immediately put the collar on his neck, showing clear admiration for the accessory. Locke slipped on the bracelet, opening the mini-monster garden entrance so he could come and go freely and always use the space for training and raising pets, and a familiar voice spoke confidently in his head. Confused by the appearance of the mysterious term mini-monster garden, the young man examined the watch's surface to find its connection to the recently discovered device. To show his owner the system, Lucky slipped into the watch mechanism and vanished from view. After making sure the pet was feeling fine, the boy asked him if he had handled the move well, and from deep inside the clock Lucky's joyful voice confirmed his safe return to the cozy space. The new experience amazed the wolf, and he warmly urged his master to try it for himself. Persuaded by his friend, Locke decided to follow the advice and take his first dive into the miniature monster garden's magical world. Stepping forward, the boy entered a new dimension, a wide garden of green with a warm, peaceful atmosphere. Inside the tiny world, the boy stood frozen, staring at the stunning scene before him as its beauty took his breath and filled him with joy. The place was calm and restful, and though not spacious, it was comfortable. The temperature and weather were kept ideal. You can use the nearby hut to store items. Many magical artifacts are devices that send objects into another dimension for safe storage, and for the first time, the young man saw one that could take living beings inside, not only its owner but also guests. Asked about his future plans, Locke said even top-ranked adventurers need rest after a hard time, so he planned to spend the near future finding and recruiting new monster allies like Lucky. The pet found the idea of finding comrades amusing and insisted a whole company of strong, free creatures would gather to escape the grip of the underground labyrinths, but the boy reminded him they first had to successfully clear the current dungeon floor. Locke raced on the wolf's back, and the loyal pet warned him to hold on tighter so he would not lose his balance. Grateful for the attention, the owner thanked his friend warmly and deeply appreciated the care and understanding. Fenrir's incredible endurance and strength let them move much faster than they expected. Ahead, a barrier blocked the exit, but their quick progress gave hope the stairs would soon take the heroes outside. The young man told his loyal assistant to take the opening on the right instead of going straight. The wolf, surprised, pointed out that the straight path led directly to the exit. The boy explained that the straight route had many dangerous groups of monsters ahead. The friend approved the decision. Everyone was glad a wise, careful companion was nearby. Then they turned right, but the boy soon asked Lucky to stop for a moment. They found a cluster of monster bodies, so Locke suggested taking trophies to sell and keeping some parts for cooking. Lucky perked up at the thought of a tasty meal, and the boy, seeing the advantage, activated resource collection mode. The loyal pet watched in amazement as its owner devised a clever way to gather and store supplies, and while the boy rode him, the pet instinctively sensed the plan and helped make it a reality. He asked his pet Lucky to try the technique, but the attempt failed. When Lucky tried, he accidentally broke the extracted material into small pieces, leaving the wolf ashamed and barely able to hold back tears. Fenrir admitted his mistake, explaining he had used too much force and damaged the material. Determined to make it right, he vowed to use the tips of his claws to handle the object gently so its structure would not be harmed, and then reactivated the folding ability. The material was damaged again. Calmly, the young man said the main rule must be remembered regardless of the outcome. Materials must not be damaged during collection. They must be ready to solve a real problem. The pet whimpered as it touched the magical barrier with its paws, the barrier blocking the path to freedom. The powerful barrier proved too strong for the wolf, and he could not overcome it alone. Although short, the adventure was unusually bright and cheerful, leaving him with many unforgettable emotions and experiences. The owner urged his friend not to give up and to try breaching the barrier in an unusual way through a portal in a miniature garden of monsters, and Loki understood the plan and immediately entered the watch's pocket dimension, ready to support any strategy. There were no guarantees of successful passage. The barrier was powerful, and no one could know if it could be crossed safely. The barrier was crossed smoothly and without complications, and back in the real world, the wolf happily noted the master's graceful, effective skill in overcoming the obstacle. The boys left the dungeon safely and encountered no obstacles or difficulties. True to form, Fenrir expressed deep gratitude to his master for freeing him after years of imprisonment, and never having imagined such a rescue was possible, Lucky is looking forward to their next journey together. Locke also wants to engage more with new allies, build friendly relationships, and find common ground with future teammates and a new friend. With his palm down and fist clenched, the boy offered his hand for the monster to shake as a sign of trust and good luck. Lucky gently touched his hand with his nose to make contact. A simple gesture marked a historic moment, the first genuine friendship between Locke and Fenrir's representative. In Kronto's royal capital, the citizens stared at the giant wolf filling the main square with fear. Fenrir stood in the middle of the street. The young man knew this reaction was natural and predictable given the unusual guest's size and appearance. Soldiers moved into defensive positions near the Adventurers Guild building as a huge gray wolf approached, ready to attack. Locke urged the guards to wait, insisting the wolf was his pet and would not attack. Ignoring him, the soldiers kept on. At that moment, the guild door opened and Rika, the Adventurers Guild administrator, stepped out to see the situation for herself. She greeted the young man warmly. He replied happily, then asked whether he should currently be exploring the dangerous Flame of Destruction dungeon with his team. Rickon saw the large dog with the boy, but the boy quickly corrected her, saying it was not a dog but his pet Fenrir, and the wolf greeted her warmly, leaving her amazed to learn she was dealing with a character from Legends. The girl congratulated the boy on being named Tamer, pointing out how rare and difficult the achievement was, and a man in the crowd stood stunned, unable to believe his eyes, for the famous Fenrir stood before him now as an obedient, faithful assistant to an ordinary man. The administrator said that to officially recognize the new team member, the pet had to be registered. Meanwhile, Lucky made himself comfortable in the square, quietly snoring and ignoring the fuss around him. After registration, the girl anxiously asked what had happened to the rest of the team. The young man, surprised to learn his former companions still had not shown up, said the kid had treacherously attacked him and left him in a dark dungeon. Rika checked the boy to make sure he was safe and sound. Kid's sword wasn't sharp enough to seriously injure Locke, so a tragedy was avoided. The administrator recalled recent rumors that Kid's reputation was poor. Rumors started when this bad guy joined Class B adventures and entered the Flames of Destruction dungeon, and the expedition ended in disaster with only Kid and one other member surviving. Rumors soon spread that the Kid had deliberately used his comrades as bait to save himself, sacrificing them for his own survival. Locke quietly accepted the rumor as true. The girl asked with interest why he had been the target of the latest incident. The boy went pale and admitted he saw himself as the group's least useful member and was ashamed of his weaknesses. Rika couldn't understand what was happening because she thought Locke was the team's most useful member, and Locke was surprised since any other member could have done his duties. But it soon became clear that as soon as they went down into the dungeon, he was immediately kicked out, and Rika was in shock. The administrator insisted the information he had given was wrong. In fact, the young man's effort and talent were what earned their squad the high S-class ranking. Without him, the ranking would drop to B-class. Locke argued their abilities were not up for reassessment, and the demotion was unjustified, and the girl insisted that betrayal and breaches of the team's code were serious offenses that could not be ignored or left unpunished. Moreover, not returning from the S-rank dungeon proves their true abilities, and they stayed with the Kid as part of a team. About to help his former comrades, the young man was stopped by the administrator, who warned that they could do to him again what they had done before. Locke agreed with the girl's point, but stressed that he had returned mainly to retrieve personal belongings left in the dungeon. Rika understood the young man's motives and told him he could leave. At the exit, the boy's faithful pet greeted him, playing among the children who were fascinated by interacting with the unusual animal. The owner asked the animal to go on a journey, but the pet refused firmly, saying he would not trust the same people twice after they had betrayed him once. Recognizing Lucky was right, the young man understood this case would be his final act of helping people who could no longer trust, and he clearly set the boundaries of the relationship. The owner knew his choices were best for the pet and did not try to convince his friend. The children gathered, waved sadly at the travelers, and said goodbye to the pet that had been part of their childhood. The decision was right and timely. Feeling inner harmony and acting in sync, the young man and his partner set off cheerfully for new adventures. In the Flame of Destruction dungeon, Kid lashed out at his companions, angry that without a map, no one could remember the way back to the exit. Isaac told him to calm down because Isaac himself couldn't remember the way back. Kara pointed out that Locke was the one who had guided them through the dungeon. Kid protested that they still deserved the S-rank adventure title, but their efficiency had clearly declined, leaving everyone stunned. The men came up from the 10th floor and told the brave man to stop complaining, since he couldn't handle a weapon either, and the Kid clicked his tongue, pointing out they had taken a different, shorter path than before yet kept running into monsters. He expected the monsters to weaken as they went down, but instead they grew stronger, and he did not know what to do. They rested briefly to regain strength. Isaac spoke encouragingly and promised the others they would soon reach the fourth floor, where the monsters would be weaker than their current opponents. The main thing was to hold on and reach the goal. The young man asked about Kid Sword's condition, but Kid cut him off, told him to worry about his own weapon first, and then pointed out that his blade was in excellent condition. The brave man explained that the sword was bought in a shop on a city street, and after all that use, the blade did not have a single scratch or spot of rust. He then asked to show his poles to everyone. Examining his weapon, Kid Popley said he didn't understand how he'd gotten involved with such a mediocre group of losers, and the other boy demanded to know what he meant. He cried that no one grasped the main point. All this time, they had survived only because their protector's divine protection had kept them safe. Rising to S rank takes at least 3 years. The boys argued they had succeeded through hard work and talent. Kid flatly rejected them, saying their success came not from merit but from the blessing of their former friend. Divine protection works only while the caster is present, preventing swords and poles from damage or contamination and boosting an ally's basic stats to improve their combat performance. The team had been under divine protection the whole time, but never thanked the spellcaster who ensured their success, and the group was stunned by the revelation. Without the magic caster's support, the team's true level was B rank, and they only reached S rank because of that caster. Tension filled the room, and Isaac realized he could reach S rank as an adventurer only because Locke had influenced his attributes. He remembered his friend always praised, and himself constantly encouraged to improve his skills. Even after leaving the team, he remained the best at everything. Gladiator refused to accept the facts and treated the team's success as his personal achievement. Amy frowned, seeing how absurd that view was. The brave man saw the boy as a problem and asked the others about their fighting skills. After learning Kara could only cast 1 or 2 healing spells, he turned to Amy to keep assessing each person's contribution to the victory. When he learned the girl could build up magic and was skilled in martial arts, he began designing battle tactics that used each team member's strengths. To reach the fourth floor, the team must first face 5 orange ants that will inevitably call for reinforcements, so a direct assault would be unwise given the known data. The kid asked the healer to heal each team member, Isaac taking the vanguard, the mage staying directly behind him, the healer following the mage, the young man himself taking the rear to guard it, and Kara confirmed she understood. All team members were successfully restored and confirmed they were ready to follow the developed plan, and the next order was not to turn around because they were about to break through. Without warning, Kid made a sneaky move and attacked Kara from behind. The young man cynically congratulated the girl for completing the final task and healing the team, and he now saw her as useless, but the girl was pleased because she would serve as bait to help the rest of the group escape. Stunned, Kara could not believe what had happened. Tears blurred her vision as she cried out to her comrades, begging them not to leave her and to save her from this terrible fate. Abandoned without hesitation, the girl was left alone, consumed by horror and despair, and she died instantly. Isaac asked why the young man had killed Kara. The young man said he had no choice and that the sacrifice was necessary for everyone's survival. He said confidently that what happened in the dungeon would remain a secret, known only to a select few, including the men themselves, who had become unwitting accomplices to the dark event. Stunned by what they heard, the boys stood as Kid explained that the servant's presence had helped them, and that the servant's betrayal would be strong evidence of their full involvement in the crime. Disgusted to find he had teamed up with a group of losers, the young man warned them not to expect his cooperation in the future. Isaac told him to shut up, saying the boy was nowhere near as strong as he pretended. The gladiator charged the creatures, but his blows had no effect on the fourth-floor monsters. Until recently, fights with giant ants had been much easier, and now it was almost unbelievable how hard they were to beat. Remembering the brave man's words, Isaac let his guard down, and his enemies attacked him from behind. Without warning, Locke rode in on a huge wolf and quickly attacked the giant ants. Lucky's attack scattered the insects and instantly turned the tide of battle, leaving the boys standing in shock. Isaac said this man should have died long ago. The young man objected, saying he had returned from hell itself. The pit wondered if it was worth dealing with his comrades down below, since everything could go unnoticed within the dungeon walls. Amy begged her companion to save Kara, a girl left alone on level 5. Locke was horrified to learn she had suffered the same cruel betrayal. Kid insisted their salvation required a sacrifice and there was no choice. Tamer reacted sharply and called everyone scum. Lucky rejected that position as absurd, felt personally betrayed by the others and said they now had the nerve to ask for his support. Realizing this was deeply unpleasant, since until then the comrades had not considered their actions at all and the owner had ordered them to move on. Noticing the boy's very kind heart, the pet assumed the dress carelessly tossed on the backpacks probably belonged to Kara. The wolf winced at an unpleasant smell, which turned out to be perfume. They pressed ahead, leaving the rest of the former team behind. On the 5th floor, the friends battled many enemies and won victory after victory. A huge swarm of ants poured out, drawn by the smell of fresh blood, leaving their nests and rushing to the source, and even with Fenrir's power there were too many enemies. The young man hurried to help his loyal pet. Lucky being nearby made the owner feel completely confident and fearless. They finally won. Defeated monsters littered the floor around them. Praising the boy, the wolf noted the impressive fighting techniques he had mastered, and the boy said it was the first time he had shown such combat skill. Together they were a great team, able to overcome any difficulty. The boy reached out and placed his hand on his pet's nose, celebrating their victory and the strong bond they shared. The heroes now had a new task to find the missing Kara. Fenrir pointed confidently and said the person they were looking for was right there. A girl lay still on the ground, surrounded by a pool of her blood. Locke stood beside her, looking down at her with a sad expression. A vivid memory came back of the girl mixing magical restoration potions and sincerely thanking him for his support and concern. Locke bitterly regretted delaying, realizing he had missed the chance to act in time, and remembering Kara's role in making the healing potion, silently cursed fate and told himself he should have been the one to thank her. She woke suddenly and smiled weakly, making those around her laugh at the surprise. Speaking weakly, she said she could not understand why the boy was here while she was still alive and had not gone to heaven, and Kara then added guiltily that she regretted her betrayal and realized it was impossible to undo the harm she had caused. The man cut her off sharply and said those things no longer mattered because, with the girl declared dead, they faced a more serious problem. The threat took the form of Fenrir, the fearsome guardian of the underworld gates, and meeting him is inevitable, so the battle ahead will be hard and dangerous. Kara looked at him, then fainted again. The young man realized the guardian of the gates of hell was Cerberus. As he headed home, the young man asked his pet to carry the wounded girl on its broad back. The pet agreed this time, saying the favor was made only out of respect for its owner and must not be repeated. Locke thanked his friend hardly, not expecting to hear something so touching and kind, and noticed a strange passage nearby. It was the entrance to the fierce orange ant's home, and delighted at the chance to taste his favorite treat, Lucky rushed forward, jumping up and down as the owner hurried after him, calling for him to wait. Before them lay rows of neatly arranged eggs of large orange ants, and the pet drooled at the sight. One egg stood out in color, while the rest looked as if they'd been deliberately crushed on the outside. The egg cracked open and endless streams of angry orange ants crawled out of the crack. The boy screamed when he saw new creatures crawling out of the egg. One aggressive ant flashed its paws and called him Daddy. Locke was stunned when insects called him Daddy, and Lucky explained the situation. It turned out the man had postponed the trip because he knew women were outside. The young man was completely confused as he tried to figure out what they meant. A voice in his head said confidently that the orange ants wanted to be his friends, and asked whether he would become a friend of the entire colony. Locke knew they had just brutally dispatched a group of orange ants, and leaving them alone now would be risky, so after weighing the situation, he accepted their offer of friendship. From now on, the whole colony of orange ants officially became his familiars. The ants changed into human form, and a mysterious voice transported the whole group into a small garden. Locke announced he would visit the mini garden of monsters and trusted his pet to look after Kara. The loyal assistant immediately carried out the order, and the young man set off himself. Befriending 6 new monsters would let the boy improve his mini monster garden, the voice said, and it suggested choosing 6 functions he wanted to improve, which felt new and unusual to him. He chose upgrades for the river, pond, hut, and fruit tree. Locke believed that expanding this dimension's spatial range would enlarge the field. Everything around gradually began to change noticeably. Frozen, the young man stood stunned by the sight as the garden expanded into a vast green field, and in the distance, he saw busy ants at work. They eagerly tackled household chores throughout the spacious, renovated area. He asked what the little helpers were doing. The ants were sorting valuable resources left behind by the monster he had defeated earlier. Locke at first doubted the small creatures could do that work, but they said it matched their natural skills. A little girl asked him timidly if he had been behaving well enough, calling him Daddy, and though the boy felt a bit awkward, he smiled and stroked her hair gently. Laughing out loud, the girl clearly enjoyed the moment. At last, the young man realized being called daddy wasn't as bad as he had first thought. He was also curious why the little girl wore a tiara, perhaps because it set her apart from the ordinary representatives of the Orange breed, making her unique. Locke tensed inward, knowing it was not the time to relax. The young man relied on the ants and said goodbye. Lucky sensed his master's return right away and cried out that a terrible disaster had happened. The boy asked anxiously what had happened and what would become of Kara. All the eggs were empty, so the pet couldn't even try one. The young man felt deeply upset and genuinely disappointed. The owner promised that once the business was finished, he would be sure to treat the wolf to something especially tasty. Those warm words made Locke feel a little relieved. Outside the majestic Adventurers Guild in the royal capital, the owner left Lucky waiting again and apologized, embarrassed by his forgetfulness. Silently, the wolf accepted the command and waited humbly for his master. Suddenly, a familiar, unpleasant voice broke the silence, putting the young man on guard as he looked around for its owner. The boy desperately defended himself, saying he was completely innocent of the crime and that it involved only members of his party, and he had no part in the incident. Isaac objected strongly, saying the accusation applied to the whole group of friends, not to him personally, and he reasonably pointed out that if the situation affected all members, it made no sense for only Kid and him to be invited to resolve it together. Rika told those present that Mr. Locke had asked them to wait for his return and said nothing more. When the mysterious gentleman finally appeared, the girl was genuinely happy and confidently said that everything would now work out for the best. The two strongly denied the accusations against them. Then the kid approached the young man and asked him to clarify the Adventurers Guild's baseless accusations, stressing how absurd the situation was. The boy explained what needed clarifying: the problems in the fight with monsters on the 4th floor despite the group's S rank, and the time he used Kara as bait and deliberately wounded her on the 5th level, and the young man immediately remembered another similar incident. The boy remembered an incident when he stabbed him while fleeing from Fenrir. When Isaac heard this, he jumped up and said the boy did not understand what was being said. The kid told his friend to calm down, then, turning to Mr. Locke, said that being expelled from an S-class party did not give someone the right to spread lies and make baseless accusations. Ultimately, this gentleman had no solid proof he was right. Other concerns occupied him. It was unsettling that such a nasty man could lie with such a sincere expression on his face. Tension lingered, marking the end of unfounded accusations. Children stressed that accusing someone without good reason is unfair. Reminding those present that he held the title hero of the kingdom, he threatened to report everything to the king immediately. After finishing his speech, the kid looked at the boy and asked if the boy had understood the point of his argument. Mr. Locke saw the danger and asked for a short break. Removing a shard from the villain's blade, he carefully pressed it against the wound in his armor. The blade matched the damage mark perfectly. Then he looked at Kid, unsure if this physical evidence would convince him. Kid was so stunned by what he saw that he froze. Trying to escape blame, the brave hero said the boy might have wounded himself and glanced at Isaac for confirmation. Isaac stayed silent, realizing his attempt to explain had failed and that he understood his predicament. Locke demanded an explanation for Kara's condition, suggesting there could be serious consequences. Amy was stunned by what she saw and deeply shocked. Falling to her knees, the mage begged forgiveness and bitterly regretted what had happened, blaming herself for not helping her friend in time when the friend needed support and feeling deep guilt over her delay. Kid said coldly that the girl died because she could not defend herself, stressing the group had no part in it, and Walk involuntarily repeated the words, unable to believe his ears. The young man admitted he had fatally stabbed the girl in the back, and the brave man said that, with no evidence and the deceased unable to confirm it, proving the truth would be very difficult. The Tamer told Kara to wake up and point out the man who had attacked her. Kara woke up, thought it was a prank, and shouted. Amy was shocked and confused. The girl contemptuously called the young man scary. The priestess warmly said good morning to everyone. Amy ran up to hug her, but Locke drew the group's attention by pointing to the side. A motionless, gloomy, irritated Kid stood there. Cora snapped at the man, shouting that he had the nerve to use her as bait, then sarcastically called him a murderous demon. The townspeople began to riot, shouting that the Kid had no right to call himself a hero. He tried to defend his reputation with arguments, but Rika said it was pointless because the witness testimony was enough to prove his guilt. Attacking allies, betraying them, attempting murder, failing to protect comrades, and flagrantly ignoring adventurer conduct rules should at minimum result in loss of hero status. Locke asked if he could leave now. The receptionist gave him permission and thanked him for cooperating. Someone called to him. Isaac dropped to his knees. Isaac apologized profusely for his mistake and said he had no choice, but even after admitting guilt, he insisted on keeping his status as a high-ranking S-class adventurer. Locke asked Isaac sternly if he had known beforehand about the children's plans to commit murder. Isaac said he didn't understand the question. Locke added that on the way to the dungeon he heard someone say a kid was joining the team. This, he believed, proved the veteran gladiator had long planned to kill him and would seize any chance. The former friend denied the accusation, saying he had acted only out of concern for his comrade. Isaac loudly claimed it was only his efforts that allowed the Tamer to reach S-class, but Rika immediately countered that Lord Locke's wise actions were what let the whole party earn the right to be called top-ranked adventurers. Only the young man in the group held the S-class rank, while his companion was at best B-class. Rika said she was sure that even if Mr. Locke teamed up with lower E-class members, the result would be the same, and the boy begged the secretary to stop harassing him, insisting the girl was only spreading lies, which matched the actual situation. Isaac proposed a duel with the Tamer, and under the terms if the Tamer won, Isaac would accept the current situation and submit, while if Isaac won, all charges would be dropped. Both the administrator and Mr. Locke approved the duel under the proposed conditions. The guild tested the young man's skills by assigning him to assemble a team that included one additional low-ranking E-rank member. A reward was promised for completing the task successfully. This was the first official request after a long stretch of solo playthroughs, and because the party would be temporary, the participant agreed to take part, while the secretary began listing the names of the characters who would make up the alternative party. The party included Isaac, Kara, and Amy. The kid was temporarily suspended from the events on suspicion of murder. He insisted there was no objective evidence of his guilt. Soon, a man from the crowd stepped forward to testify. The witness was revealed to be a member of the famous A-class group Black Spear. The events took place in the Extinction Dungeon, where the kid's friends fully trusted him and saw him as an honest, reliable comrade. Doing his best to support his friend, he told the townspeople about the incident as soon as he returned to the city, but the unknown adventurer's story failed to convince them or to undermine the established hero's authority. The adventurer felt deeply guilty, believing he had not done enough to defend his friend's honor. After hearing his account, the administrator said the hero's connections or influence cannot change the facts when there is clear evidence of a crime. The kid said proudly he shouldn't have joined such an insignificant party because he had nothing to lose. Sarcastically, he said he had completely forgotten to mention why the guild had decided to detain him, since he was sure the reasons for such a hasty arrest were unclear even to him. Mr. Locke urged the young hero to stop making trouble and avoid further conflicts, but Kid said he would not accept demotions or loss of status and was prepared to defend his position at any cost. The young hero pressed his sword to Amy's neck, openly threatening her life. The others urged him to stop, assuring him they could still regain trust and restore good relations within the guild. The kid was stubborn, insisted on stepping aside, and openly said he had no intention of staying in such a stupid organization. Mr. Locke kept urging him to release the girl, but the brave man cut him off, imperiously warning that if he did not want to be blamed for our deaths, he should step back at once and let him pass. The kid warned them to leave and not become prey to monsters in the future, then quickly left holding the weapon and the girl in his hands. They all chased the fugitive to rescue the kidnapped girl. No need to panic. The girl was completely safe, with her loyal pet Lucky sitting patiently by her. The wolf came closer, happy, and asked his owner what he thought of his actions. The tailed favorite tried not to knock the kid over with his paws. Mr. Locke warmly thanked his faithful companion for responding quickly, and because the hero and his trusty animal worked together, the criminal was caught without any needless noise or fuss. The child actively resisted the guards' attempts to shackle him, twisting and jerking free from the officer's firm grip. The owner warmly thanked his loyal assistant, who modestly said it was a trifle and not worth thanks. The faithful companion went to his friends and handed back their personal belongings, which he had kept safe through his care. Timidly stepping forward, Amy bowed her head and quietly apologized for the whole incident, feeling deep shame and embarrassment. Mr. Locke cut off the apologies and said the self-blame was unnecessary. Isaac clutched his head in dismay and said the long-awaited competition seemed to be canceled. With no choice left, he had to let his former ally rejoin the team. The young man sighed deeply, keenly aware of the absurdity of the situation. Mr. Locke refused outright to join a team of former allies. Kara stepped closer and said gravely that the young man had faced the worst betrayal and deserved a second chance to prove himself in her group. The boy could not believe something like this had happened. He was stunned that she had forgotten she once left him in trouble. He firmly refused to be on the same team with people like that. The girl tried to justify her actions. Kara blamed Isaac, saying he had earlier called Mr. Locke worthless and useless. Isaac replied that the girl herself had expressed the same opinion. Amy asked everyone to stop fighting. During dangerous dungeon expeditions, every team member clearly saw the boys' contribution, but no one admitted the young hero's obvious superiority, choosing to ignore reality and keep the illusion that everyone had equal skills. She admitted that all responsibility for what happened rests solely with the group members. The administrator stepped forward and announced it was time to begin the assigned test. The young man apologized sheepishly for the delay and inconvenience, and when told there was nothing to worry about, Rika described the upcoming competition, which would start with a C-rank difficulty test and then move up to B-rank. Isaac dismissed the chosen tasks as too easy and not suited to their skill, noted the secretary was clearly underestimating the team's abilities, and said he was not in danger of losing. They must obtain an egg of a rainbow dragonfly called an orango, scales, claws, a fang from a flying dragon, and fresh green emeralds, then present any one of these items within 1 week to complete the task. Mr. Locke found the tasks fairly easy, but asked Isaac carefully if he was really sure he had made the right choice. Isaac's former friend reacted sharply, insisting it was wrong to assume the young man would run away because he still had a chance to return to the team. He bristled loudly, upset that anyone would ask that. The secretary asked if he planned to leave the team given their S-class status. The gladiator was shocked. The boy quickly guessed the real meaning of the conversation. The guild has all the information they need, including records of every mission the team has completed, and they know that Kara is intolerant of Oregon, Amy fears demonic insects, and Isaac freezes at the sight of a frog. Locke saw it as a guild warning that rule-breakers would not escape punishment. The gladiator said confidently they would complete the task. The secretary waited for the mission's outcome as the team set off. She introduced the E-rank adventurer to the young man. The owner told Lucky they'd be a little late and asked him to rest here. The magical animal obediently complied. Rika asked which parts of team building the boy found hardest to endure, and he said betrayal and failure to follow orders were unbearable because he alone bore full responsibility for each party member's life. Locke, bewildered, asked whether it made sense to settle matters this way. The girl said it was normal and insisted that despite her appearance, she was the guild's deputy director with special powers. Rika made it clear she was not the typical pretty administrator. The young man immediately remembered she had been the guild administrator for 3 years. The girl still had her old charm and looked almost the same, though she said she had gained a lot of weight since joining the guild and was no longer young, and she was curious about what was happening. Mr. Locke said he was trying to get to know his real teammate. The secretary noted the adventurer was in a very unusual situation, but did not expect her to betray or openly oppose the team, and the young man became interested in the situation's peculiarities. Rico was a little skeptical. Either way, the new comrade would meet them at the training ground soon, and she hoped Locke would teach her a lesson. They entered the building together. Before them stood a graceful young girl with a collar around her neck. The administrator formally introduced the stranger as Shannon the elf. The young man immediately realized the newcomer was an adventurer of elven origin with a low E rank. A slave collar circled the girl's neck, and the secretary said the elf had been enrolled in the guild because she was both a slave and an adventurer. Mr. Locke looked puzzled about what the information meant. Rika replied sympathetically that Shannon's 5 previous owners had died in suspicious circumstances or sudden accidents. At first it seemed like a chain of coincidences, 2 deaths by natural causes, 1 by poisoning, a fall from a cliff and a demon attack. Events followed one after another, and because the girl's former owner did business with the guild, she is now listed as an official member of the organization. Locke believed these repeated deaths were not mere bad luck. Shannon said she was a Dark Reaper and knew the young man had not sought his own death, so he should refuse the task. Trying to calm his companion, the young man said the adventure was meant as a one-time thing, but the girl took his words as a threat and immediately became aggressive. Stopping the attack just before the boy's throat, the girl warned sternly that we creatures unable to defend ourselves or avoid the blow should not try to touch her. The Tamer was puzzled that he would behave this way when he could choose otherwise, and Shannon could not understand why he did not recognize how clear her position was. Indignantly, the girl suggested the boy was deliberately moving toward his death, leaving Locke completely bewildered and confused. Shannon said she was forced into a slave existence because she once refused to live fully. Fate imposed limits on her freedom, and she wondered why the last boy would willingly take the same path and become part of someone else's problems. She had grown tired of watching yet another person die the same way. The boys watched with compassion as the girl tried to hold back tears while struggling with overwhelming emotions and sobbing. Locke decided that if he could surpass the girl in strength of spirit and experience, he could avoid problems. Beyond practical concerns, his heart told him he could not abandon such a sensitive and kind companion. Shannon told him to be quiet, but the young man refused to back down and showed his strength of character, while the girl struggled to hold back her tears. It was clear to her that the young man had remarkable resilience and would never abandon his chosen path. To make him see the full danger of the situation, the elf attacked at once to demonstrate her fighting skills. The boy stood his ground, deftly dodging and fending off the fast attacks in time. She was naturally fast and had certainly landed thousands of blows in her life, handling her weapon with skill. After knocking the weapon from the girl's hands, the young man said his practiced moves were flawless but had one major flaw: the strike path was predictable. With that remark, he ended the fight. Indignant, the elf launched another attack and said firmly that she never lost a fight. Locke found Shannon's basic training solid, but her combat techniques did not meet his goals. Taking her hand and warning it would hurt a little, he laid her down in one smooth motion. The boy declared the fight over, but the Reaper refused to accept it. Even after admitting defeat, she believed the boy would still die. The young man begged not to be killed without permission and insisted he would not die. Shannon said she would die anyway, because others had said the same and still died. So the girl stood firm, saying she had no right to let herself be defeated. Confident, Locke declared he would show the true reason he certainly would not die, and after warning Shannon not to be too shocked lest she faint, he prepared to reveal the secret of his success. The young man summoned the legendary Fenrir from his mini garden, leaving the elf stunned and amazed. The creature's arrival released powerful waves of magical energy that could be felt physically. A towering column of energy burst from Lucky, filling the space with a sparkling glow. Shannon stared in disbelief, unsure if what she saw was real. The mighty Fenrir had become a personal familiar, obeying the commands of an ordinary boy. Locke softly praised his magical pet, but the girl remained puzzled and did not understand who this unusual young man truly was. Someone told her to wait. It was her brother, secretly following her again. Shannon's younger brother Seth was born 5 years after her. Both were born and raised in an elf family. The girls truly believed their whole future would be quiet and peaceful. One day, Seth vanished without a trace in the mysterious forest of affection. While her parents did everything they could to find her brother, Shannon had to look after the house. Her parents told her to stay, but when she thought her precious brother was in danger, she couldn't wait at home and went to look for him. There was only one place left to check. An ancient mansion belonged to a powerful magician. Once a favorite playground for children, the forest became a symbol of the eternal friendship between human mages and elves and was named the Forest of Affection. A majestic mansion stood in the mysterious forest, owned by a powerful magician. Only a select few were allowed to cross its threshold. Hundreds of years had passed, yet the mansion looked exactly as it had when she was a child. No sign of age or decay. If Seth wasn't in the forest, he had to be inside. Shannon pushed the heavy doors open with determination. It had been empty for ages, yet not a speck of dust lay anywhere, and the girl felt a wave of anxiety as she wondered what kind of place it was. Shannon called out her brother's name loudly, hoping to hear his familiar voice. She saw her brother lying motionless on a large wooden table in the center of the room. The girl ran straight to him. The boy's heart pounded and his breathing was quick and uneven. They needed to get him home right away. A huge black eye suddenly appeared before her, pulsing with ominous power and a dark threat. Confused, the elf stared at the strange sight, having no idea what it was. Suddenly, the mansion's massive doors slammed shut, cutting off the way back. Carefully, she put her weak brother on her back, wondering why the doors stayed stubbornly locked. A huge black eye appeared again and quietly asked which of them would be saved. Shannon told them to save Seth, and the black eye slowly began to close. Those black eyes suddenly unleashed a powerful energy blast straight at the girl. The impact clouded her mind, and she fell unconscious, remembering nothing that followed. Shannon woke to find herself in her own bed, her brother smiling happily as if yesterday's story had just happened. At first she thought it was only a dream, but soon strange events began to happen, and she started to doubt that simple explanation. Creatures around her began dying one after another as the deaths steadily increased. At last, the day came when their beloved horse died. Shannon warned her parents, but they brushed her off and called her fears imaginary. So realizing delay would bring disaster to the whole family, she decided to act alone and quietly left the village without telling anyone. Accustomed to life inside her village's cozy walls, the elf found the outside world harsh and cruel, and after some time she realized she was a slave. Despite her new situation, her first owner told her the best way to survive was to study and learn about the outside world, and they showed remarkable kindness and patience while teaching her the basics of life. 6 months later, the kind owner died without warning, as if he'd fallen into an endless sleep and left the world. The girl began to suspect, though she could not bring herself to admit it, that she had caused her first owner's death. 3 months later, the second owner died suddenly of an unknown illness. The third died even faster, falling from a cliff just a week later. The fourth mistress poisoned herself, and the fifth was killed by a ferocious monster. Anyone who touched her died, so people nicknamed her the Grim Reaper and began to avoid her. The elf did not want anyone to die, and when the girl reached her most desperate moment, an organization calling itself the Guild took her in, but she wanted to go to prison to avoid dealing with anyone. The Guild saw her differently. Rika asked to join their party as an E-rank adventurer. Preferring solitude, the Reaper honestly told her new acquaintances the full story of her tragedies and tried to convince them not to let her join the team, and sometimes words were enough, while other times she had to resort to physical force. Determined to avoid this walking death, the girl kept her distance for a long time until one day a man appeared. Introducing himself as Locke's sister, the stranger cheerfully said he was glad to meet her. As usual, Shannon tried to dissuade her new acquaintance, but for the first time he reacted seriously and refused to back down. She was shocked that such a powerful fighter, an elite S-class member, had been expelled from the team, yet he showed rare kindness and sincerity, and it puzzled her that he did not fear the approaching death and was willing to risk his life by her side. To prove his invulnerability, the boy summoned the legendary Fenrir. A legendary wolf appeared, and the elf stared in astonishment. Hard to believe what was happening was real. A man with incredible abilities subdued Fenrir, the legendary wolf, and made him his familiar, leaving Shannon stunned. Memories of people who feared her and wanted her dead stayed with her, and she believed her own death would be the right ending because she had hidden her true feelings even from herself. Tears running down her face, the elf realized that despite everything she still deeply wanted to live. Maybe this is someone you can trust. Worn out from everything she'd been through, the girl fainted. Concerned, the young man turned to her and asked if she was all right. Rika said the girl was fine, though the recent shocks had clearly been a severe test and left her deeply fatigued. Relief showed on her face as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her heart. The secretary ordered that she be allowed to rest briefly. Lucky immediately turned to the owner. Guilt overwhelmed the pet for being harsh with the girl, and he called it a mistake. Locke calmed him, said everything turned out for the best, and thanked his friend. Seeing his beloved owner's approval, Fenrir burst into tears of happiness and offered a prayer of thanks to the heavens. Also, the wolf carefully asked the owner what he planned to do about the trembling bird. After the pet let out a long howl, the fragile bird immediately passed out and fell limply to the ground. The young man confirmed that was exactly what happened. When it came to, the bird fluttered in fear. A voice in Locke's head said the skybird wanted to be his friend and offered to be its friend, and Locke found this unexpected and funny and agreed to make more friends. A voice said the bird had befriended them and moved into the garden. The owner thought the number of friends would grow and took it as a good sign. Lucky wanted to taste the bird, but the young man forbade eating friends. Shannon came out and someone asked if she felt better. The girl apologized for her earlier behavior, but the boy refused to accept it, thinking she had acted to protect others. Grateful despite her lack of experience, the elf still asked to join the squad. Both were genuinely happy about the new acquaintance, and Lucky enjoyed meeting his new companion. Locke pictured the reaction if the pet pointed its paw at the girl, but she stayed calm and said everything was fine, since Locke had convinced the owner he was making progress, and the owner feared he might blow her up. After touching Shannon, the wolf was certain she was under a powerful curse. He added that such a curse is an extremely unpleasant phenomenon that drains the life energy of those around it, and sooner or later, exhausts and destroys the victim. People were dying around Shannon, so Locke immediately asked how to end the destructive curse. Lucky could not lift the curse. It was a delicate matter and not his field. The owner would probably manage while the young man spoke. The wolf decided to take the owner's head for a second. Startled, the boy asked what was happening, then suddenly felt the needed information pour into his mind, like water filling a cup. It was the opposite of divine protection. The owner never suspected his pet had those powers. Now he was offered a chance to test his strength and try to break the curse. The guild leader abruptly stepped in and firmly declared he would not allow the curse to be lifted. The boy was left bewildered by the announcement. The young man demanded to know exactly what the guild leader meant by the ban on removing the curse. Titus said the boy knew the guild owned Shannon, so she was part of the collective, and the guild's rules forbade outsiders from removing dangerous curses. Locke tried to object, insisting there was no time. The man said this was typical of him, and that if he let his emotions take over, he would risk the same fate as Isaac. The guild leader noted that a lot had happened recently, and asked if the boy was tired. The boy answered yes. He then wondered whether the rules forbidding lifting the curse from members of the organization meant a person did not have to be a guild member. Titus planned to wait a little to let the man come to his senses, but then he decided to begin the main discussion at once. What would Locke Shannon gain from the guild? The leader said buying her would free the girl from guild employment, remove the obstacles to lifting the curse, and asked the boy for his opinion. The young man was completely confused and did not know what to say. The man kept asking how the other man viewed the Adventurers Guild's main purpose. The young man said the guild's main purpose was to help other adventurers make a living, and Titus liked that view, but said the guild's true mission was to bring happiness to adventurers. The leader sees betrayals like Isaac's as intolerable. Normally, he would remove the culprit immediately or at best sentence them to permanent exile. For the traitors themselves, this does not change anything fundamental. Admitting it might sound naive, the man believes the guys will take the chance to see themselves with new eyes. In the end, the heroes will be thanked, and as someone who helped them through their difficulties, he only wants them to find true happiness. In his opinion, Shannon's life was full of trials, but she still remained a sweet girl who cared for others, and they were similar in that both had endured many difficulties, and their willingness to sacrifice themselves would make them a great team. The leader will not force anyone, but he will be pleased if the boy chooses to support the girl, and grateful if the elf returns the favor by supporting Luke. The young man never imagined anyone could understand his soul, but he discovered people had been watching him closely. The man smiled faintly and glanced at Shannon. When the young man asked what she wanted, the girl said that as a slave she had no right to decide, but she added that she would willingly go with Locke if he was not harmed. Promising to take care of Shannon, he asked how much the purchase would cost, and the administrator pointed out that the price matched the reward for the task, which genuinely surprised him. First, the young man said he would remove the curse and drew a magic circle. Right in front of Locke, a horrible black eye appeared, filling him with unbearable dread. The mysterious creature called forth by the curse tried to cast a dark spell on the young hero. The black eye vanished, and everyone present turned to admire the young Tamer. Relieved, the boy exhaled, and Lucky stood proud of his master's success. He thanked Lucky, admitting the victory was possible only because of Lucky's support. The head of the guild spoke with enthusiasm, saying the curse placed by Magin's founder had just been lifted. Locke asked whether Titus knew anything about the curse. His reply was brief, and even as leader Titus knew little. Only a handful of reports of similar incidents had reached him. Rumors said that in ancient times, a Magin ruled the world and could summon magic. The young man sheepishly asked to be warned about such things in advance so he could be more careful. Shannon thanked the young man warmly and said she was eager to begin working together, since the problem seemed behind them, and Titus concluded that all that remained was to prevent Isaac's victory and obtain the necessary materials. The heroes began preparing and moved to the mini-garden to take further action. The elf asked where they had ended up. The young man explained it was a tiny garden hidden inside the bracelet. The girl admired it, saying she had no idea such a wonderful inner world existed. Locke blushed with embarrassment. The girl noticed the skybird the boy had recently befriended. Shannon said skybirds that fly very high are rare, so not everyone gets to see them. The same goes for Fenrir, an unusual creature who knew he was different. She called him unusual, and he realized he did not fit in with the others. The pet stretched out on the floor and groaned softly, saying it was hungry. Locke felt hungry too and thought about asking the orange ants for meat, but he realized he did not know where to find them. Lucky said the young man knew they had set up a dwelling in the dungeon under the hut's floor. The owner was stunned. Staring at the huge hole, the boy could not tell when they had made it. Orange ants crawled out and greeted Daddy warmly, happy he had returned. Curious, the girl wondered why the orange insects looked humanoid and whether they were really ants. Lucky said the boy liked those kinds of things. The young man began to justify himself, saying that when the larvae hatched. The elf hurried to calm him, promising to keep any secrets, and the pet smiled slightly. He admitted it had been a big misunderstanding. She said excitedly that they had communicated wonderfully and asked him for the details of the story. The boy asked if the others understood the gist, but Shannon just spread her hands to show she hadn't, though she did realize the orange ant was speaking almost like a human. The young man wondered whether she truly saw the insects as people. One of them said she had learned to speak only because she had learned to communicate with humans. The insect explained it was different from the others because, as the family leader, it had special powers to negotiate with other species and give orders. This gift is called interspecies language. The girl tried to reproduce the sound she heard and was able to use the gift by imitating the voice. Lucky asked incredulously whether the girl understood him, and she said she did, leaving the young man unable to believe his ears. Shannon thanked Aunt Hardly. Locke had no idea how many hidden abilities existed in the world. He had assumed only this girl could speak, and she turned out to be gifted. To show respect, the young man named Aunt Patra. Flattered by the lovely name, the insect suggested the others give her names. Locke scanned the gathered group and saw they looked almost identical. Patra said there were differences. The young man's suggested names, Orange A through Orange E, had caused discontent. Surprisingly, the insects liked the new names. The ants jumped excitedly, showing wild joy and delight. Surprised to find many distinct traits among the little creatures, he realized he would need to get to know each one before choosing suitable names, and then he turned to Patra to ask about the dungeon the ants had built. Patra led a tour of the dungeon's rooms, showing the cold storage for food including meat, the room for drying wool, and the demonic crystals found during construction. Admiring the scale, Locke gasped at how much had been done in so little time. The friends cheered at the master's praise. They decided to use the news that food was available to prepare dinner. At the market to buy kitchen utensils, the young man remembered they had no dishes, so Shannon asked if he was going to take up cooking. Time was short, so he settled on frying a chicken. The girl carefully repeated the phrase. Locke agreed, saying the dish was very simple. Season the meat and fry it. Chicken pairs perfectly with cabbage. The elf dreamed of the future culinary masterpiece. The buyer politely asked the merchant if he had any cabbage. The man said fresh cabbage was temporarily unavailable and would not be back soon. The young man sighed and complained that he wanted a taste of chicken with his favorite cabbage. A stern voice interrupted his daydreams, reminding him that the hero should not allow himself any entertainment now. Suddenly, Isaac, Amy, and Kara stood before them. Market, the heroes stand among the merchant stalls. One asks the other if he can really afford to have fun. The tall adventurer says bluntly that if the character kneels before him now, he will gladly return him to the party but not otherwise. The boy turns to him. A girl suddenly steps between them, clearly aggressive. The tall swordsman does not know who she is or where she came from when she asks him what is wrong. A man asks Shannon, the girl's name, to leave the bullies alone, then calls the swordsman Isaac by name and says that from now on nothing binds them together and tells him to leave. He smiles and nods at the guy. It was a trap, and then he swings his fist and hits the girl in front of him. Instead, the young man pulls his hand back from his girlfriend's face. This surprise leaves Isaac stunned. The boy asks the bully what he is doing, and the bully only grinds his teeth in anger. Although he didn't fully understand the guild's tactics, he thought the boy should have been paired with a strong adventurer and doubts the girl really is an E rank. He calls over a piece of trash and says a hero couldn't use her properly. Isaac grins evilly. Tension eases, then the girl speaks up and tells Isaac to take his words back. She screams that Locke is not an object but a crazy bully because he throws words like that around. Surprised, the hero watches Isaac scold the girl again, saying the weak dog barks too much. His girlfriend asks Locke, the hero, again whether this girl is really his new partner. He says her name is Shannon, an E-rank elf adventurer. The sorceress studies the stranger closely. They meet each other's gaze. She acts like she does not want to offend Shannon and notices Shannon's clothes are shabby. The heroine feels excited by this. The sorceress turns back to Shannon and says that if Shannon is going to a party with Locke, she should pay more attention to her outfit. The man says it is none of Kara's business, and the sorceress's stylish clothes do not affect her powers, so the comment makes Kara pout. Suddenly she snaps that she cannot believe the man's choice. He says it was not his choice, but she insists it was. Amy, another friend of the hero, introduces herself and apologizes for her comrades being so rude to Shannon. She also speaks to Locke. Bowing, the girl says she is not sure an apology can make up for this, but asks forgiveness for everything her comrades have done, adding that she has thought about it a lot. She believed Locke would give up adventuring, but she still wanted one last contest with him to judge his strength, and after that she would decide what to do. The man says he understood her. Isaac shouts at Amy to get moving, and she follows him, wishing the boys luck while Locke calmly tells her to be sure to use it. After the adventurers leave, Shannon tells Locke they should do something too, but he interrupts and says everything is fine. He knows they can't afford to lose now. Surprised by the hero's attentiveness, she notices the full moon rising and Locke suggests they return. Steam rises as a loud sneeze echoes. A huge dog-like beast sits in the middle of a small area, its muzzle covered by something. Locke tells Lucky, the beast, not to play with the cornmeal. That explains the clouds of steam, and Lucky doesn't play with it. The beast sneezes once more. Suddenly everyone turns to stare at one person with wide eyes. The girl snorts. Everyone laughs as the man announces that everything is ready. Beautiful fried chicken cooked by Locke rests on the platter. Guests thank the young man for the treat. Lucky sniffs the pile of treats with satisfaction. Everyone digs in with relish. Everyone is raving about how delicious the food is, but Locke asks them, including Shannon, to eat more slowly. She starts again, vividly describing how delicious it is. Everyone is happy, and their joy seems endless. Locke now tells the boys what they must do this time. They must reach the Dungeon of Fresh Greenery. Getting there takes 2 days by cart. Completing the order takes weeks. That area is full of difficult terrain like forests and swamps, but going in a straight line would get them there in under half a day. Based on the weight of Isaac's party's luggage and the cart's direction, they will follow the usual route, and the guys have no reason to lose unless something happens to them in the forest. Even taking the shortest route with their luggage, the opponent's journey will still be difficult. All of them have eaten their fill. After that, Locke's team moves out. They always sit on Lucky while he runs through the forest. The girl says she also had to be moved now, but the animal feels completely fine. True to Fenrir's nature, the monsters do not attack but watch from behind the bushes, following them with sad eyes. Riding on the beast's back, they suddenly spot something. They hear a crying sound and think someone is being attacked by a monster. A man asks Lucky to back up a little, and Lucky agrees. The boys are stunned to see a winged demon sitting in the middle of the clearing. The demon is weeping. This stone statue is a gargoyle. One of the statue's eyes opens suddenly, and the demon giggles. He waves his arms and shouts. Magic blades fly toward the characters. The characters are surprised again. The girl concludes it's wind magic, the boy confirms, and the beast laughs, saying no one would dare challenge him with wind magic. He opens his mouth, and a magic circle forms in front of him, followed by a glowing ball. A man praises Lucky, saying the beast is very strong. The energy ball keeps growing, startling the heroes. The ball gets a little bigger, and Locke, worried, asks the dog to stop. The royal capital is that way, so if he keeps going he will not escape punishment. Something is wrong. The dog says he can't stop it. The man is terrified and, with no time to think, jumps up and runs to intercept the shot. Standing with his back to the demon, he extends both hands and reads a runic spell. A prismatic object and a magic circle appear before him, and he figures that even if he cannot break the spell, he can at least disperse its energy. The beast fires the gun, sending a stream of power toward the man, who winces in discomfort. The beam of light splits into two, bathing the boy and his demon. Locke grunts under the force of the shot. He keeps holding. Using his last strength, he turns to a strong woman and asks her to endure. Because of his efforts, the spell cuts through the 2 large roads on either side of the capital. Silence settles, smoke drifts toward the moon. A lone man stands in the wasteland. The boy is breathing heavily after managing to prevent a disaster. A huge beast emerges from the fading smoke, covering its eyes with its paws, and a girl stands beside it. The beast shudders slightly. Peering through his fingers at the man, he laughs. The girl asks Locke if he is okay, and he really is. Locke asks back, and the girl and Lucky are fine too. He says everything is fine, but the girl notices Locke's injured hands, and he notices them too. The healing potion can handle that wound, so the boy drinks from the bottle, and his wounds really do heal. Delighted with the potion's effect, Shannon smiles as the man thanks her because he made it himself. The dog whines that he messed up again, looks at Lucky, and turns toward him. He is thinking about the dog. Seeing that Lucky only wanted to help, the boy appreciates the gesture and Lucky cries, touched. Locke says the beast's magic falls into the disaster category, so they will now learn to control their powers and fight together. The beast touched more and more. The beast says he will do his best and train. The man turns to face the demon, clearly afraid. When he asks the gargoyle why she is here, she covers her face with her hands in horror. The demon covers his face with his elbows, shouting that the man is a monster as he cries. Locke says such words could not come from a gargoyle, and overall it is strange to hear him cry in that place, and the youth asks what the reasons are for this. The gargoyle says he is sad after being kicked out of the demon lord's army and now sits here. Locke is surprised to learn monsters can be fired too, and the gargoyle says he believes he was made from scraps. Their magic is weak, so he has stayed in the castle, spending the last 100 years cleaning. Recently, the army's leadership changed, and they told the gargoyle they no longer needed a monster whose only job was cleaning. After being fired, the demon wandered the forest in confusion and eventually hobbled to a nearby village, where the villagers suddenly attacked him and he fled. Locke says many people do not handle monsters and demons well. Best agrees, but says he was always cleaning and had not seen people before. Feeling inferior and knowing people hated the demon filled his heart with sadness. Shannon looks at the monster with pity. After all this, the demon wonders what the point of his life was, begins to moan and sob, and Locke interrupts his sob with a cry. Rumor had it the gargoyles were the demon lord's elite soldiers and required a huge amount of magic to create, so it was hard to imagine they would make one from leftover material. Facing the monster, he asks what to do next, admits he does not know, and even turns to the young man for advice while the demon keeps crying. Locke glares at it and swears in the Lord's name, then asks the demon to come with them and feels a little encouraged. He asks again whether it could be true, since he's just a foolish gargoyle obsessed with cleanliness. The hero replies that strength doesn't matter and points out that after 100 years of cleaning, it's no surprise he is weak. The demon thanks the boy, says thank you very much, and asks the boy to let him join the group. From his perspective, the sealed gargoyle wants to be Locke's friend. He notices that it appeared in his mind by itself and that the gargoyle is sealed. The young man says he is unsure what it means, if it is some kind of sealed power, and that he was created only by the previous master. Locke hums in understanding, then asks permission to greet Gargoyle Kun again, and Kun replies that it would be a great honor for him. When Locke turns gray, a voice tells him the sealed gargoyle has been transformed into a sacred beast and is now his friend. The transformation is complete, so he can now choose one of the options. This expands the hut. He chooses one option to complete the expansion. A demon just told the man there's a village nearby. Pressing on, they find a field sown with cabbage that grows here in great abundance and is already ripe. Locke wonders why there's a cabbage patch in the middle of nowhere. Noticing the dog has fallen asleep, he suggests they can't stay there. Shannon agrees. At last, morning arrives over the forest. They continue on foot. The man says the Gorulia already told him about the place they came to. They stand right in front of the village. A square wall runs along the village perimeter. The sign reads Chowchin Village. At the village entrance, a man in a vest leans against a pole and snores loudly, while a boy and a girl watch the stranger who is asleep and pays them no attention. Locke tries to speak to the gatekeeper but finds him asleep. Shannon hesitates, touches his shoulder, and greets the peasant. The peasant wakes and asks what is happening. The girl politely asks him to wake up. Opening his eyes, he says the angel himself has descended from heaven and that it is probably time for him to go to heaven, but if this girl takes him, he does not mind and even tries to kiss Shannon. A dog steps on the gatekeeper, stopping the unwanted kiss, and the man groans as he finds himself pinned to the ground. He grows angry at once and asks who has come and whether they are bandits, but Locke assures him they are just adventurers heading to the caves who heard about the village. The peasant reacts immediately and says that since the boys are adventurers, they should visit the headman now because the village needs them. Locke asks again, still unsure he understood it all. Many people here are emaciated, which surprises him because this area has never suffered hunger, and then someone greets him. Meet Anagami, the village elder, leaning on his walking stick and smiling at the boy. The man says it's nice to meet the old man and introduces his companions Shannon and the sacred beast Bully Lucky. The elder says the gatekeeper's sleep was fruitful this time. The gatekeeper replies that his experience makes sleep no obstacle to his duties. The gatekeeper also removed the stone gargoyle statue. The headman says it is all very touching, but the gatekeeper says his eyesight is failing. The gatekeeper asks again what he was just told, calls the headman a stupid old man, and the two begin to argue. Locke steps in, asking what the elder wanted to talk to him about. The elder apologizes for getting carried away, clears his throat, and prepares to tell the boy what the matter is. About a year ago, the goblin's former green garden swamp was failing, the fields and village were struggling, and the goblins raided and took the little food that remained. A group of young men tried to kill them to protect the village, but they returned wounded. 3 young men are sitting there with their wounds bandaged. When the elder asks the heroes for help, it proves absolutely necessary. The boy asks again whether they really are goblins. Goblins are smarter than most monsters, but if their numbers grow, they will become dangerous. The village appealed to the guild and the government, but neither would take the job without a reward. Locke sees the situation clearly. If he helps these people, he will earn nothing as an adventurer and won't be able to feed himself. Besides, even if they save them now, they may ask for help again later, and the peasants should be more independent. The boy turns to the elder. He asks to see the area map to find where the goblins are, and they give him a map and show him everything. He now says everything is clear. There's a real way to deal with the goblins. The peasants can hardly believe it and ask again. The nearby cabbage beds will help them survive. The old man thinks about the heroes, but Locke warns that if they do nothing, everything will repeat at night. He can help develop the village so this does not happen. His kindness discourages the villagers. When the village starts earning money, he will ask the villagers to give him 20% of the proceeds so they can have a roof over their heads. The elder says he cannot take sole responsibility for 20%, and that annoys the hero. Locke tells the peasants the boys are busy with another matter, and if all the villagers help, he will take only 10%. That's 10% of the profit, meaning sales minus each person's costs and labor. Even without the residents' help, the team can still provide food and deal damage to the enemies. Everyone's talking. The village's main problem is its location. It limits transport links with the rest of the state. The fields are poorly maintained. The village lacks specialty products and many basic necessities. Offering free help would not change anything. The villagers need determination. The elder asks for time to consult the other villagers as well. Shannon asks the hero what will happen next. The hero says the villagers will receive far greater profits and are unlikely to refuse such an offer. Either way, the boy will go to prepare the garden and asks the girl to tell him if the headman calls. She agrees. At last, the old man appears and apologizes for the delay. In the end, opinions were divided. He is sure they cannot make any improvements if left on their own. He asks whether it is normal for the compensation to be used for unexpected expenses. Locke agrees that if they cooperate with him, they can deal with the goblins, secure the village's food supply, and keep the residents safe. If so, the villagers see it as the best possible deal, but one resident doubts the hero. The young man doesn't think it's a good idea, but the headman cuts him off. He insists that without the wound, he would have handled the goblins easily. This man was one of the men hurt by the goblins earlier. Locke reaches into his coat for a bottle. He offers the villager a healing potion he made himself. He refuses, saying he doesn't care and won't drink it. The hero says if it's not necessary, it isn't. That shows his good intentions, and he will treat his companion first. She says she can't wait to try this special magic potion and lifts the bottle to her lips to take a sip. Loudly praising the flavor, she says it's very tasty. Healing potions seemed unpleasant to her, but the one she just tried is surprisingly soothing and easy to drink, and she feels light throughout her body. He wants to drink it too, so Locke pours it straight from the bottle into his mouth, and Lucky's eyes widen with pleasure. He loudly praises the taste of the potion the man brewed. He cannot explain it, but it feels very calming, refreshing, satisfying, pleasant, delightful, healing, helpful, relieving, and strengthening. It is unclear why. The man offers the bottle to the young man as well. The young man tastes it warily and says he will not be fooled. It's really tasty. He loudly praises the potion he just tried, vividly describing its unusual flavor that he liked for some reason. He enjoys the taste a lot. Now he understands he no longer needs the crutch. The pain is gone and feels like a miracle. Nothing else, that's what he thinks. Coda says they are handling another request now, but if they help the guys, they will also share extra healing potions with the residents. The young man says they will gladly accept the command if the wounded are all healed now. Warren introduces himself as the headman's assistant and apologizes for doubting the heroes, saying he will be happy to cooperate now. The headman asks if anyone objects, but no one speaks up. Everyone finally agreed. 6 days remain until the deadline for the main team request. All the villagers are surprised when they taste the food he prepared. People love the taste. It's cabbage soup. The villagers are surprised it's so tasty because they've never eaten cabbage before, and the hero says cabbage itself is quite tasty. While preparing the soup, the hero added a restorative potion, and those who felt unwell began to recover. The boy approaches Shannon and asks if she can help him, telling her to take Orange, Ants A, and B with her and protect them and the villagers when they go to gather materials. She asks whether he truly trusts her with such an important task, and he reassures her that everything will be fine, saying she can defeat any monster in the area. Ants A and B can take care of themselves too. That's the boy's plan. The girl says she'll do her best and that she finally understands. For everything else, he and his team will build a road straight to Kronto. That road will let travelers come and go and will solve the delivery problems at once. Then the man waves his hand and fills the space around him with magical energy. People feel lighter in their bodies and appreciate it. A young man casts a strengthening spell on them to make moving easier, but it does not last long. Everyone is delighted and praises it at length. He tells them not to overdo it to avoid breaking bones, and their joy is unending. Shannon admires the way he casts strengthening magic on so many people. He tells her that with training she can do it herself. Next time he will teach her this. She admires him again and thanks the hero. Everyone is now being asked to start building the road. They actually build the whole road together. Ants are placing blocks while others are busy with tasks. They've done enough for today, and the hero suggests stopping there. Much has already been done. They've almost finished laying the stone and clearing the road. At this pace, the road should be ready by tomorrow. Thanks to Lucky's magic, they can build a road. The boy will then try to trade the village's goods. His familiars are amazing, far beyond anything he could have imagined. Night falls and the action unfolds in the Garden of Monsters. The hero studies the map. The girl brings him a cup of tea. She asks whether the master is still asleep. He's planning for tomorrow, but first she needs to sleep because she worked harder than everyone else and must rest. He tells her not to call the young man master because that sounds wrong and he doesn't consider the chewing gum his servant. She is struck by the young man's kindness. Shannon is very happy to have met Locke and says the meeting made her incredibly happy. Thinking of her, he says he is glad their paths crossed. It grows even darker outside. At last he devises a plan and tells her right away. They will ask the villagers to harvest cabbage and he will sell some of the produce in the capital. There's a cabbage shortage there and he's sure it will all sell out. Don't forget the guild's request. Confident of victory, he also knows that exactly how they win matters. Titus may be afraid of something, but the hero must stop explaining because the girl is already asleep. In her dream, she tells Locke he is amazing, and he looks at her with wide round eyes and a kind, gentle face. He waves his hand and cleans her head. He thanks the girl sincerely. The night still looms over the hut. The ants and the demon are asleep. The bird that landed on the roof of the house is also sleeping, and Shannon is sleeping in her bed. Still awake, the hero goes outside, hears another voice, and noticing it, says the man went somewhere. A dog sits in front of him and is awake. A man asks if Lucky is asleep, but Lucky ignores the question because the answer is obvious. Then he asks what they are catching today, and it turns out they're catching rainbow dragonflies, and they also need to deal with the goblins. As long as Lucky stays near the village, the monsters will not risk attacking, and even if the boys are left alone, some adventurers will defeat the monsters instead. Surprised by the reasoning, the dog still agrees. He urges them to leave now, and the young man agrees they should. They all head into the forest to catch dragonflies. They gaze at each other like lovers. Morning arrives as someone hums while preparing food in a young man's house. A bright light wakes him and he sits up in bed. Here is a song and the sounds of cooking, and I think it's Shannon. Seeing her get up early to make breakfast for everyone makes him happy. He calls out to her loudly and asks if she needs help. It's not Shannon, but a demon in an apron replies that everything is almost ready and you just need to wait a couple of minutes. The man shouts that it's not a girl and apologizes for the mistake, while the gargoyle looks surprised and asks what happened and whether he had a nightmare. Everything is fine, but he asks if he can help, and it turns out the demon was often tasked with feeding an entire army of monsters and can do much more. A man says everything is fine, and Shannon enters to wish the hero a good morning. She regrets falling asleep last night. He tells her not to worry, then asks if the character will really train with a wooden sword. She insists she wanted to make breakfast, but Gargoyle told her to leave it to him. Locke accepted it that way. He was grateful, but felt something was wrong when he saw the demon. The girl also wanted to ask whether the hero himself was tired. That night he went to catch dragonflies and was amazed by her knowledge, since he only ever caught dragonflies with Lucky, certain the girl was sleeping soundly and should not be disturbed. She yells that it's not the point and that she wants to be useful to Locke, so he suggests they all catch dragonflies together next time. She asks him to promise and he agrees. Meanwhile, breakfast is ready and the gargoyle announces it loudly, and the boy and girl agree with him. In the second half of the second day, you must sell the cabbage at the rune and deliver the dragonfly wings to the guild, tasks a healed village warrior who once distrusted the hero will carry out. With the road cleared today, the boy thinks he can finally sell his goods. He will teach the children to catch large numbers of dragonflies. If the land is plowed and planted with cabbage, the food problems will be solved. Night has fallen and they have finally finished everything that needed to be done. People are celebrating. People thank Locke for his actions. Grateful, the headman thanks Locke again, saying he did not expect the road to be finished so quickly and asking whether the tide is not a small tax on him. That's fine, they can send him funds through the guild. Before dawn, they split up and stole the green frog's egg and stone. No wyverns appeared, and they could worry about it the next day. Now he feels a simple emotion. He remembers where the rolling cart was. They believe their rivals will arrive at the destination sooner than expected, and that will cause problems for everyone. It's morning, so the boy stretches and tells everyone to try their best today with all their might. A small bird landed on his shoulder, so the hero asked where the garden's mini birds had come from, and he was surprised to be told he was wrong. This is the same heavenly bird that was there the day before. He says the skybird was a bit larger, but when sorting materials from monsters, a nut-shaped object was found. When the sky bird inexplicably ate the object, it shrank into a crumb, and the man is amazed and wants to know how to make the bird big again. The bird simply makes random sounds on its own. True, there is nothing to be done, and in time she will grow up. The main thing is that nothing threatens her life. The bird is in shock. Suddenly he realizes he smells something awful, asks what the stench is, and discovers it's a dog. Locke tells Lucky exactly what smells wrong. Locke asks again whether the hero is mistaken. The beast insists the hero cannot possibly stink. Locke asks when the dog last washed itself. The dog replies that it might have washed itself yesterday while lost in thought. He couldn't wash then because Locke stayed by the beast all day and never saw him pick up soap or a towel, so he says he washed himself the day before yesterday. His eyes lock with the man's, and the beast freezes. He says he is perfectly fine without taking a bath, yet he still licks himself clean from head to toe. Locke says there is nothing to be done about it. He has already thought of everything and asks everyone present to start catching and bathing the animal. Despite Lucky's great strength, everyone thinks it will be fun and joins in happily. The latter says he's curious too, and jokes that the boys should remember the lip-rolling spell if they think they can catch him. Then the man performs his own magic, casting a magical aura over most of those present, including Shannon, the gargoyle, and the ants. He announces he has cast support magic on everyone except Lucky. The effect won't last long, but the man's strength and speed will increase. Everyone thanks the man standing in front of the dog. Lucky says with a laugh that they would be fools to think any support magic could make up for the difference between him and the other beasts. The first duel pits the legendary Fenrir Lucky against Patra, queen of the orange ants. Patra loudly declares she is starting. Yelling that the fight has begun, she rushes toward the beast, waving her arms. He mutters that the sweet, naive Patra can't handle the wolf on her own, and she throws a wad of sticky threads from a distance to snare the beast. Dodging, he shouts triumphantly that he already said he can't be caught by a single attack. Facing the familiar, he looks arrogant. She raises her hands and lets out a triumphant cry, declaring that it is over, which leaves the beast confused. They come from all sides and attack the dogs. Shouting that it's an ambush, he watches smaller ones spit out bundles of thread that tie the wolf up and immobilize him. Helpless, he collapses to the ground as the ants watch. He even cries out loudly when he falls to the ground because the bonds are unexpectedly strong, and Patrick tells the master that they manage together. He says this shows how magnificent she is. By pretending to attack alone, she made the wolf lower its guard. She laughs. The boy tells Lucky to be a good boy now. To many people's surprise, he stands up and breaks the bonds by his own strength. Waving the pieces of thread, he seizes them with his teeth and captivates the ants to their great amazement. He points out they did well immobilizing the beast but lack the magical power to hold it, and the ants weep inconsolably because Lucky is strong. The gargoyle says she now understands everything, drawing everyone's attention. The demon says he'll be next to challenge the dog in that case. Now the duel between the proud sacred beast Lucky and the gargoyle begins. Fenrir says the gargoyle has no real chance to win, and the gargoyle replies that he is always underestimated and will show his best side. He also relies on the demon's 100 years of gathered knowledge despite its weakness, with Locke's support magic aiding him, and the dog's underestimation works to his advantage. The dog brilliantly defeats the demon. The dog looks around and demands to know who will fight him now, and Shannon steps forward saying she is ready to fight. The duel begins between Fenrir, not a dog named Lucky, and the elf blessed by his master Shannon, and the beast asks the girl to show what she can do. Determined, she vows to give it her all and draws her sword from its sheath. Finally, the girl charges the beast and swings her sword, but it dodges. He claims she can't touch him at that speed, and she just snorts. Then she starts striking him repeatedly with her blade and asks what he will say now. The beast jumps around, accepting that the elf is tougher than she looks and has grown stronger, but a casual attack won't harm her. She understands this. The beast is finding it harder and harder to dodge. She strikes again, taking the dog by surprise. She pinned him against a rock. He can't tell when she pulled that off. The elf points the blade at him. She orders Lucky to obey and go wash himself, but the beast quickly slips to the side and disappears from view. Pressing his tail to her neck, he holds its razor tip so any movement will cost her head and something else. The girl sighs, admits defeat. She relents as the dog praises her, saying she moves well and clearly trains hard every day, and she thanks the beast, but now it's time for another fight. Now for the main course, a duel between Fenrir, who just wanted to play and is named Lucky, and a guy named Locke who wants Lucky to take a bath. The warm-up is over, and the dog signals the young man to attack without holding back. A man pulls out two sharp knives, crosses them in front of him, and for some reason the dog watches him. The beast freezes and asks what the sweet smell he just noticed was. A small bird is perched on his head. A celestial bird has turned into a chick holding a flower in its teeth, and the beast says he does not understand what it is as his strength fades. He collapses to the ground and sinks into a deep sleep. The boy is surprised the bird decided to bring a sleep-inducing flower. It turns out the chick won. The young man suggests everyone wash together for luck, and everyone agrees. Near the New Leaf dungeon, Isaac and his comrades ride in a cart, and he nervously asks everyone nearby why the road has not ended yet. One of the girls, a sorceress, asks him to be quieter. The other stays silent and looks at the raging Isaac with disapproval. He says he'll make that bastard regret betraying Isaac's party. The guy means Locke, the hero. Amy replies that they were the first to betray him. He interrupts her, and the girl covers her mouth. The young man refuses to hear any of it. Isaac fought on the front lines and earned S rank, but no one cares about that Porter Locke, and even after all that, things still don't go his way. He and his party were told that without the Locke they were at C rank level, and Isaac would never accept that under any circumstances. The hero will win no matter what and prove himself to everyone. The girls watch his meltdown without much sympathy, and one of them even chuckles. She says she should make it clear now that she will not collect orango eggs, and there are unfortunately not many rainbow dragonflies. Isaac already knows both, but this time they do not need to gather everything for the request, and the main target is still the wyvern, so it should be fine, or so they think. The girl finally asks Isaac the question she has long wanted to ask, why he is so arrogant, and Isaac answers that he does not want to hear that from a girl. She explains that Isaac accepts requests without checking the details and adds them to the party without prior discussion, so this time the girls have no choice but to help him. He replies that they will do as they want, even if they plan to leave the group afterward. This time have them follow his orders while the request is being fulfilled. The cab driver says they have finally arrived, and Isaac tells him to keep the change for himself. He says the money given wasn't enough because he gave the others the closest ride to the dungeon. If he doesn't pay, the cab driver's time will be wasted. The man gets furious, as always. To keep him from getting upset, he gives him a lot more money, then leaves while Isaac curses profusely, as always. Despite his claim that everyone is only trying to make him look foolish, it doesn't matter now. He's looking straight ahead. Positioned across from the New Leaf dungeon, they are ready to enter it straight away. The request is due in 4 days. They go inside. Elsewhere, the guys are washing the dog. In Dungeon New Leaf, the character aims to reach the wyverns deep in the dungeon, where they will search for monsters. The three move forward between the dungeon's rock walls, and a sound catches the leader's attention. Dinosaurs are swarming around Hill. Isaac says they should grab the rest on the way back, but for now they need to get the wyverns. The leader worries that no one is answering him, and no one is. Something feels wrong because there are no rainbow dragonflies or green frogs anywhere. Orango is available but can't find their eggs. Under these conditions, he asks if the heroes can gather everything they need to fulfill the requests, but no one answers. He may think the guild is trying to set them up and doesn't even have the correct information. If so, the guild's guild is obvious. When they come back, they will immediately remind the guild of all these humiliations. Someone suddenly moves behind the bush, making an unpleasant sound. A goblin leaps out of the bushes and hits the man. He draws his sword swiftly and wounds the goblin. He says the guild failed to warn anyone about the goblins, and the organization's staff acted irresponsibly, leaving him very angry. The man notes that among the monsters, a tall goblin knight stands out and leads the little freaks. Isaac can clearly tell from the shots that even high-level goblins are in the area, and he thinks this place has become their lair. Lunging at the goblin knight, he strikes with his sword, but the knight jumps aside and dodges the blow. Isaac yells at them to get away, as if that will help and the goblins will actually get away. The knight, leader of the goblins, charges the young man and strikes from above, forcing him to twist his whole body to block the monster's blade with his sword. Blocking, he remembers a guild member saying the boys had divine protection while Locke was with them, but without him, they were only rank C. He shouts that it's false. He can't accept losing to this goldfinch, he thinks, as the goblin pins him to the ground with its weight and strength. A fiery spear pierces the monster and it screams. The man screams as well. The monster lies on the ground, smoking and pierced by a spear. Amy asks if Isaac is okay. He thinks he was fine and could have handled it himself, but the second girl says he looks like the battle was tough, and he gets angry at that remark. Now the group is surrounded by evil goblins. Isaac says leave the fighting for later and focus on the goblins now, because there are already so many, and he swears terribly as always. The battle ends, goblins lie scattered, and the fighters breathe heavily after a brutal fight. They ask each other if it is really over. It is, but not completely. The Goblin Knight was the monster's leader, but they finally decide everything should be all right. The girl Mage begins to cast a spell. Isaac turns and keeps walking, telling the boys to follow because they still need to deal with the wyverns before returning to the guild. The girls reluctantly agree. Wayburn's scream echoes repeatedly from the giant rock mountain at the center of the area. From behind the bushes, the heroes watch many animals crawling and swarming in different ways. Isaac tells Amy he will attack to distract them while she uses magic to pierce their wings, and when the monsters attack, he will finish them all off. They will target the wyverns that are away from the group. The girl understands Isaac and why this must be done. The swordsman rushes at both wyverns with his sword ready, shouting that he has finally gone despite everything. The wyvern screams at him with harsh, unpleasant sounds. He swings his sword at them, but they already know how to use their wings and fly up, avoiding the blow. Amy jumps in and fires flaming arrows in all directions at the flying wyverns. Arrows catch up with the failed dragons and they fall to the ground, engulfed in tongues of flame, smiling into pieces. The man also slashes them with his sword, cutting them into pieces. With the wyverns destroyed, he should move on to the next stage of the plan. Suddenly another wyvern attacks the girls, filling the air with harsh, unpleasant screams while the man fails to notice it rising, making the attack unexpected. The girls must run to save themselves, dodging the heavy tail's strikes. They run away from the wyvern as Isaac catches up and asks if they are okay, but one girl is openly angry at Isaac and sighs. She yells at the boy because he was supposed to look after his mages. Comparing him to Locke, she is sure a professional would have protected them both. The boy gets furious, as always. He yells that Locke has nothing to do with them, that Isaac didn't know there was another wyvern, and that even with an escort it should be able to defend itself. She's in shock. Screaming, she calls it complete nonsense, says she and Amy must leave now because they'll die if they stay with this idiot Isaac, and she does not resist. The sorcerer says she can no longer be near the young man. Scolding her, he asks them both not to leave, confused and furious as always. Standing with wide eyes as the girls leave, he yells at Kara, the sorceress, to wait, but she doesn't, and he grows furious as usual. Watching his former comrades join Locke because they'll probably be better off and have abandoned him too, the boy remembers Locke's face and feels his usual fury. Once again, the boy's memories show a grandfather who told Isaac that Locke is incredible, but Isaac is not, and that the boy should learn from Locke, which does not motivate the boy. He remembers crying back then and says everyone keeps talking about the Locke, and it's just annoying. Wyverns now surround him, ready to cause all kinds of trouble. Seeing the monster's teeth closing in, the boy decides to make everyone fail the request. Planting his sword in the ground, he shouts that he will not let Locke win under any circumstances. The girls look at each other and say that what they see is clearly terrible and should not be happening, but for some reason it is. The caster unleashes the spell Great Cross, and the wyverns scatter as powerful streams of magical energy shoot off in different directions. They vanish into the flame, and the girl sits behind a rock, hiding from the magical energy. He looks at his sword, its glow lighting his cruel face. Energy fills the entire cell and rises upward. Lock the villagers inside, watch a huge cross rise in the distance, and hear a sound. Shannon says it's definitely Isaac and company, and confirms it can only be Isaac and company. The boy asks Shannon to stay with him and she agrees, while everyone else keeps working in the village, and Locke counts on Lucky and immediately understands how things stand. At last the friends reach the rock, the dungeon of fresh foliage. Thick smoke pours from the dungeon entrance as three figures step out coughing, and one man comments on how smoky it is. Isaac, one of those who came out of the smoke, feels sick, and Amy compassionately supports him under the elbow as she helps him along. The swordsman tells Locke to bite back because the wyverns and the materials had all turned to dust from Isaac's carelessness. He says the boys will no longer be able to fulfill the request, and he Locke comments, saying he did not expect his former comrades to stoop to such villainy. Shannon shouts at the boy that if it's true, they must go back to the kingdom's capital, buy the materials, and take them to the guild, even though it's unfair, because they can't afford to lose, and she has already seen the items for sale. Lock the objects, they might contain wyverns and need further investigation. Shannon tries to object but backs down. The swordsman glances over his shoulder at Locke to show that Locke's men can search as long as they want, and Isaac will return and wait for the next meeting. Locke follows him with his eyes. So the three of them, joined by Lucky, enter the dungeon and see a terrible, smoke-filled scene. They examine the goblin knight's body and doubt it is really a goblin knight. Locke says the knight must have led the goblins, so the village is safe now. Lucky agrees. From above, the area looks like scorched earth, though the foliage is oddly undamaged. All the monsters have completely turned to dust. Isaac has strong magical power, so the path of a mage suits him. The materials are spoiled and cannot be delivered. Locke says there's nothing to be done and suggests going back, but Lucky cries with joy after finding something. These are wyvern eggs just behind the rocks. The eggs were behind rocks, so they weren't damaged. The dog wonders if they're tasty, and Locke isn't sure but says they need to take the eggs to the guild sometime. Later, all the villagers are happy the boys defeated the goblins, and Shannon asks if they should also take care of the goblins in the swamp. It turns out the swamp is in the same place as the dungeon, and because the map is outdated and the name changed, they are the same goblins. Waiting for Isaac and his company to deliver at least some materials to the guild, the boys spent the day helping improve the village and planting and tending cabbage. At last, the day of departure arrived. They also built a fortress to defend the village. The queen ant built a gate and a stone wall around the village to protect everyone from monster attacks and make sure everything stayed safe. Every resident thanks the heroes. Going forward, the villagers will follow the heroes' instructions and keep developing the village. Once again, they thank everyone warmly and call the cabbage a wonderful invention. They invite him back. The hero feels very happy. Now we must deal with Isaac and his comrades. Now they all said farewell to the residents and went to Kronto's capital to handle the finances. The action takes place in the capital of the Kingdom of Kronto. The hero walks down the street, scanning his surroundings. Whatever he is looking for must be nearby. Someone calls him from a stall, and a man from the village stands there who lack cured some time ago. When the hero asks how sales are going, the man says the cabbage is selling fast, especially because the rotating dishes and samples are very popular. In addition, the adventurers bought up a special low-priced item. Because of them, the man earned a lot and gave a share to Lack, but Lack refused and asked to use the remaining amount to buy a demonic cow to develop the village. The young man says he owes everything to Laku, his friends, and the other villagers, and thanks Laku on behalf of himself and the others as the boy smiles. The preparation is now complete. Only a visit to the guild remains. The hero walks there with determination, frowning and staring straight ahead as he passes through the wide-open gates of the Adventurers Guild. The secretary and Isaac are already waiting there with two girls. He says sharply that Locke is late while greeting the boy casually. Both look at each other. On the table are the materials that were supposed to be brought when asked, and Luck and Shannon silently examine the items Isaac provided because he had no way to get them in the dungeon. Grinning triumphantly, he says he thought Locke ran off because he didn't have all the necessary materials, and the young man replies calmly that he would never do that. Isaac smiles again and asks whether the man really came to the guild empty-handed just to play. Locke says it doesn't matter, since the materials are provided. Isaac says the boy is trying to act tough. The secretary begins checking. The check is underway, and the men are looking at one another. The bully snaps that Locke should already be on his knees, begging his opponent for forgiveness with all his strength. The hero says he does not want to upset Isaac, but he will not be the one to apologize. Isaac asks again what the matter is, and it is actually very simple. The secretary says Mr. Locke will be declared the winner of the competition. Isaac is stunned and doesn't understand what it all means, but Locke has already delivered 30 scales, 10 claws, 60 wings, 9 wyvern eggs, and 40 stones. Isaac can't understand how this could be possible because Locke came to the dungeon after them, so he couldn't have taken anything since the young man had already destroyed everything there with his own hands. The swordsman lunges at the boy, grabs him by the collar and accuses him of colluding with the guild and doing dirty deeds, while Locke sighs and says he did nothing of the sort at all. According to Locke, Isaac must explain himself before accusing the young man of dishonor. Isaac did not get the materials himself, but bought them at a store. The swordsman repeats that he defeated the monster himself and asks what the man is talking about. Locke remains adamant and leans over the table. Isaac lifts one of the dragonfly's wings and finds the mark of the village of Tushino, which he somehow missed. He explains what happened. Realizing Isaac had destroyed all the materials, he had to buy replacements. Offering his at a low price, he lured the hooligan into taking the bait. He claimed he'd read Isaac's mind, which meant Locke would rush to buy up the store's limited stock to win. They already had plenty of material, so he sold it from his stock. If it weren't for the swordsman's greed, he says, Isaac wouldn't have wasted so much money. Both girls look at it with disapproval. Isaac asks how the man got to the dungeon, not understanding how it could be possible. Locke exhales calmly. A quick look at the map shows a faster route, he says, but it is much more dangerous and goes straight to the dungeon. Kara says she knew it all along. Isaac is furious as usual. Kara tells the boy she refused the dangerous road, but he doesn't understand because the competition lets them remain S-rank adventurers. Y asks if the girls do not want to defeat Locke and his crew. Isaac thinks they do. Taking a deep breath, she adjusts her hair. She says Isaac still hasn't realized something important. He was the only one who truly wanted to win the competition, and that really surprises the other man. Locke is furious as usual. Turning to Isaac, he thanks him again for defeating the goblins. Isaac looks surprised because he does not understand what the hero is talking about. Killing the goblins did some good because they had been harassing the people of Locke's beloved village, and the villagers could not afford to pay the guild. To the boys, the guild seemed willing to at least offer the villagers a little help. The secretary grinned as soon as the hero said that. He had asked Shannon to collect wyvern claws and scales on the first day after they arrived in the village, since those were far from the nests, and then decided the guys would handle the goblin themselves. Isaac screams that the man used him, curses and lashes out with words, and is furious. The boy lunges at the hero, fist raised and calling him a beast, when a sharp shout suddenly stops him and someone asks him to stop. Mr. Titus stands there with his arms crossed, watching the scene with a stern expression. He says Mr. Kidd confessed to everything, including the conspiracy with Isaac, and for Isaac this means nothing but the end. Dropping to his knees, he cries, "This is the end, and he must admit defeat." Everything was resolved. Isaac and everyone else were questioned and punished. Because Amy and Kara had extenuating circumstances, they were only demoted to C rank. Isaac's S-rank party disbanded. Karen and Amy planned to form a new one with Locke, but he politely declined. Later, they learned to trust one another and formed a new party, and the kid was sentenced to prison. An investigation into his crimes began, and he will not be released soon. Isaac avoided prison but was forced to work in a mine for 6 months, and in the future, he can only become an adventurer by starting over. The hero then feels great. He lies back against a tree. The dog asks him what the boy is thinking. It wasn't anything special. He was just thinking about his friends and staring into space. They grew up together but never really knew each other, he finally concludes, and that leaves him with something to think about. Those atrocities by his childhood friends had strained his relationships with his familiars. Now he can accept the sting of betrayal. Now Locke will trust his friends and use his power to help them. The dog is pleased. Locke asks her to look after him, the hero. He replies that everything is fine and lets the hero rely on the beast. They look at each other. Shannon calls from a distance that the food is ready. The friends head over to eat, and another problem is solved. There is one more thing. Later it becomes clear the hero will get caught up in another unpleasant situation. We'll discuss this later. At the city gates, a group of warriors with various weapons stands, focused on something, while a group of giants faces them. Real ogres appeared unexpectedly across from the royal capital. They tower over the boys like boulders. One of the monsters strikes with his fist, sending people flying like chips and making a very loud sound. The situation is dire because the warriors are overwhelmed, and the ogres will keep advancing and completely destroy everything here. If the boys can hold out until nightfall, they will be saved, but if the adventurers do arrive, they will claim all the credit. The warrior moves to do something worse, but the ogre swings his fist and is about to hit him, and it seems neither he nor his comrade can be saved. Locke appears on a white horse, played by the beast Lucky, and everyone is delighted by his arrival. Apologizing for the delay, the warrior shouts at the boy to work hard to catch up and defeat the ogres. He tells them to trust him and that now is the time to counterattack. They attack the monsters themselves. The beast holds the ogre's hand, but the ogre strikes with his other hand, and the young man is worried. A fiery spear launched by the sorceress Amy, already known to the man, pierces the monster's chest. After thanking her, the hero is told to keep his guard up because it's dangerous. Aunt Queen Patro is asked to take command. It's her specialty and she's happy to help. She oversees a complex plan to divide elements into groups and combine characters in varying proportions, which makes little sense. Everyone feels better as the hero casts a power-boosting spell. They thank the hero again for the 1000th time. Then they charge the ogres and begin destroying them. Warriors from every side close in on a single monster. Shannon and a few others attack another man. Other people stun and throw the third person to the ground, and the dog becomes active. Lucky strikes another ogre and knocks it down with his paw. Locke is shocked by how powerful the blow was. Lucky brags it was easy, but Locke says the dog is simply too strong on his own. Patra is doing great, the man believes, and she can defeat anyone by uniting many actors. As expected from the Queen Ant, she forms a great team with Shannon. Locke spots a gargoyle gun firing at one of the ogres. Forming a wind bullet, he fires at the monster, but the creature is immune to such attacks. The demon screams in despair that it didn't work. The gargoyle's power is still sealed, and he cannot remove the seal himself. Lucky must help with the lock. After the fight, the 3 ogres lie on the ground in front of the city wall. The last one is defeated too, and their rejoicing never ends. Sorceress Kara uses healing magic to mend the injured warrior's present wounds. Everyone thanks the saint because they truly appreciate her. She says you can't put a thank you in your pocket, and they could somehow provide you with clothes. Handling public attention comes naturally to her, and she clearly has a talent for it. A man rides in on a horse, surrounded by exactly the same riders. Here are the Imperial Knights. Stern Marcus, captain of the Imperial Knights, leads them and thanks the adventurers for cooperating in the study of the ogres. To discover why the ogres rampaged, the knights will take the ogres' bodies. The adventurers who just defended the city are angry because the bodies are valuable for materials, but the knights will not accept objections. Locke watches silently as events unfold. Later in the city, a man slams his fist on the table and shouts at Marcus, who is there, demanding to know what Marcus means. The adventurer claims the knight is trying to steal monsters that rightfully belong to the guild, whose members killed the ogres. Still calm, he says the research is necessary because the monsters appeared too close to the capital for anything to be safe. We need to figure this out. There will be payment too. A guild member objects that the knight's payment is too small, but it is only monetary compensation. The knights will not offer more, and trade has nothing to do with it. Titus says the knights showed up after the battle and did not cooperate. The adventurers were the ones who fought and risked their lives, and Titus now demands money and more. Marcus says Titus is overstepping his bounds and should stop. Let the man go. He's discouraged. The guild secretary asks them both to wrap it up and stop arguing. She has already agreed to consult the squad's vice captain. Titus apologizes and is very sorry this happened. Marcus is still sitting here while Locke walks away with Shannon and Patra on his shoulders, and they talk about what happened. Titus admits it doesn't look good, but he still sees it as oppression and says the adventurers will soon flee the country. Such people are vital to the country's development and defense. They solve problems, hunt monsters, and clear dungeons. As a result, the state sees fewer monster attacks and victims. People buy dungeon artifacts that boost their strength, and Marcus is foolish because he does not understand. One says Titus is unusually emotional, which rarely happens, and the other replies that he and Marcus have a very toxic friendship. He also goes to Locke with requests he claims are from the guild. Thefts of magic stones and combustible stones are getting more frequent. The investigation is difficult because there are no eyewitnesses, and Titus wants Locke to handle it. Unusual for a hero, the guild member still trusts the man and will even pay if the criminal is not caught, just for the job. He says he understands and will do his best to investigate thoroughly. Shannon suddenly makes a noise that surprises everyone, but it is only her stomach growling because she is hungry, and she feels embarrassed and flustered. At the street market, a man feeds Shannon whatever he can buy here. They eat dango together. This isn't dango, it's actually wild boar lard on a stick. Shannon apologizes to the man again for what happened. He tells her not to worry because he was hungry too. She thanks him for being patient. Now that everyone is here, it's time to go to the one place the hero has long wanted to visit. Inside this gunsmith shop, people are checking everything available. The blacksmith asks Locke what's wrong. He already knows the man, and they agree. He says bad things did happen to his former comrades. The blacksmith replies those people had dared to humiliate him, and that was just the way it was. Surprised, the young man realizes the blacksmith knows about his divine protection and support magic. The solution is simple. The blacksmith sees the man's equipment is old and weak. He asks why the hero is here, but Locke is actually here to pick up equipment for the ant children. The blacksmith says that when he saw Patra wearing a crown, he looked closely and realized it was the queen ant. All the good people in this city admire the man, and he tells him to choose whatever he wants. Familiars do choose and try different things. Finally, everyone decided. After he asks Shannon and Gargoyle if they want to pick something up for themselves, and they politely decline, he leans over Patra when she is chosen as staff. She wants to use magic to help people like her dad, but whether she can use it at all is unknown. He suggests she try letting them continue training together. She agrees auxiliary magic would suit her well as a commander. In the end, everything is done. A knight in a white cloak approaches. Matteo greets him, but there is no response. The knight goes straight to Partha. He comes up behind the girl. Using the practice move, he slams his foot into something, sending the monster flying into the far wall. The young man hurries to her and asks if she is all right. The warrior asks why monsters are in the store to begin with, says it's ugly, and Locke asks what he is doing. But he replies that the half-baked beast Tamer shouldn't have brought women and monsters here at all. The knight mocks the boys, and he says there's no need to flash your eyes just because Locke has powerful monsters at his disposal. The knight asks again who the young man thinks he is, but the young man remains sullen and silent. Even leans toward Patra and asks how she feels, just in case. She's actually fine. Defending herself was easy, she said, and the attacker hit too late to cause any harm. As expected from a strong monster, Patra holds up well. The knight shouts that they must not ignore him. Not used to this at all, he asks again whether the young man truly does not know who he is. All of Locke's friends, including Locke himself, say they don't know and assume the worst. Standing at full height, he tells the dirty peasants before him that they need to learn, and he will tell the boys himself who he is so they can study it properly. His name is Miss Slee, born into a noble family and certain to become the next leader of the knightly order. He points out there's nothing to gain from fighting someone like him, but the man replies he doesn't care. The young man says missile threats do not scare him at all, and he wants to apologize to Patrick right now. He becomes extremely angry. Missile joins in insulting Shannon and asks Locke to call the elf the beast away from him, saying it is generally unwise to start a fight with a member of the Knight's Order. Boldly, she replies that his words mean nothing to her and that she will make him answer for them. The knight seems to mock Shannon for her hurt feelings, exactly what he wanted. Calling her old and repeatedly mentioning her age, he suddenly offends her. She yells that he's wrong and says it was not the age jokes that offended her, but Miss Slee calling Locke an unfinished beast tamer, which she found offensive. Drawing the blade, she points it at the man, who is stunned by the move. She says that right here and now she will teach the knight good manners and turn him from a pest into a normal person, while he understands nothing, is angry and does not notice the figure approaching from behind. Missile says the girl will regret this. He draws his sword, but an angry Marcus has already appeared behind him. The knight notices something behind him, turns around, sees the commander, and his ardor immediately fades. After being punished, he apologizes to Patra, as Locke originally demanded. Mark regrets his subordinate's actions and apologizes to Locke, a noble gesture. He apologizes to Portra as well, though she is fine. Locke, with Patra's permission, forgives everyone here. Marcus asks to be forgiven again. He already knows Locke. Everyone in town knows how luck works except stupid people like Missile. He asks if the boys have finished their investigation, but they have not yet. Then the knight turns to the blacksmith and asks if he can say more about the theft of combustible stones. He says this happens often, about 1 or 2 times a week. Today a worker just lost one. The criminal's goal remains unclear. Marcus confirms it is incomprehensible, and the hero now summarizes everything he has learned. The commander asks the man to report anything interesting, then returns to the main office. Watching the knight leave, Locke feels surprised. Chan and 2 others. She expected Marcus to be more menacing and unforgiving, but he's actually a nice guy. Titus scolds him, and in this argument the guys are more likely to side with Titus. Locke comes up with another idea and asks the blacksmith to show where the stones were stolen from. More information is needed to make everything beautiful. The blacksmith agrees. He leads the man into a storage room or workshop. the walls lined with weapons. Everything is closed, and the windows, doors, and chests are locked with a key. The blacksmith explains that a stone lay on the work table. The boy notices two entrances, and the thief could have entered here without the owner noticing. Still unsure why he needs the combustible stone when many more valuable artifacts are here, he finds the purpose unclear and asks where the combustible stones are stored. The chest is tightly closed, and no one has ever stolen a single stone from it. Unable to draw a conclusion from the information, the boy asks permission to summon a familiar, and once granted, summons his Pokémon. It's lucky he barely fits in the room. He also asks why he was brought to that hole, and the other man asks for forgiveness. The blacksmith admires the beast's strength. The dog says he is glad to meet him. A man asks if a dog can track a thief by smell. Generally yes, but it is hard because there are many scents and some hide the one you want. Realizing he can't help, the dog apologizes, and Locke says everything is fine and thanks the animal for coming. The blacksmith keeps admiring the boy and now focuses on the bracelet that hides the boy's familiars, unable to hide his emotions when he sees the boy use the artifact so skillfully. He tells Shannon he saw Locke studying, and that Locke used to be quite clumsy and awkward, and she can't believe it. Locke asks the blacksmith to stop, but the blacksmith almost tells an embarrassing story, and the young man prevents it. Patrick wants to give her something again. This bib is small. It is a mithril breastplate, light yet strong, and Locke marvels at the material. This metal can only be made into equipment by the elite, like kings and aristocrats, and he can't afford to accept it, but it's okay. A noble family planned to outfit a child with the armor, but he fell seriously ill and could no longer use the cuirass. They asked him to throw the plate away, but the blacksmith refused because he had already been paid and had not returned the money, so he could afford to give the plate away for free. Here they accept an expensive gift, but a few things need fixing, and the plate will arrive in a couple of days. By the next morning, everyone is already in the forest. The ants wave their sharp blades as they wait for the boars to attack them. One of them lunges and kills the boar with a single sword blow. This is a rare sight. The others are also firing their new weapons and doing a good job. Children are remarkably adaptable, and within a day they mastered the weapon perfectly. He assumed they were fighting with bare hands, but the weapons unexpectedly boosted their abilities. Frankly, Locke looks forward to their continued growth. Either way, this is great. The boars are completely enslaved. The request let the guys test their new skills, and overall there are no problems. He asks one of the ants, B, who was hurt, whether it hurts. Everyone looks at one another, and then Patra appears. He strokes Ant B's head. The others want it too, and they pounce on the hero, even though he tries to bring at least some order to the situation. Then everyone lies on the ground, happy. Locke, Shannon, and Patra conclude the ant children are happy. New information suddenly fills the hero's mind as the sacred beast, Wyvern, is about to be born, and the question of whether he will befriend her leaves him perplexed. The shell cracks, and moments later the three watch happily as new friends hatch. Happy to have finally hatched, they smile while the man praises their hard work and a bird sits on his shoulder. The man credits the heavenly bird with caring for the eggs because he did not expect the eggs he received to hatch so soon. Lucky was slightly surprised to have befriended the sacred beast, the Wyvern, which now lets him improve 3 places or objects in this dimension. The protagonist scans the list of objects to upgrade, considers hot springs, a mine, and a banana tree, likes them, and chooses those options this time. After that, the 3 objects he chose start improving, and a stone building stands next to the hot springs. Perched on a hill, the hot spring must be amazing to bathe in, and now that they have a mine they might craft weapons and forge armor with special abilities in the mini monster garden. Now they can click on bananas too, and it's nice to watch the mini garden of monsters grow as the main character looks at the banana trees. He calls it excellent and suggests everyone return to the guild to report that they completed the request to subdue the huge boars. She agrees. All 4 mount their animals and split into 2 groups, and the man tells the woman he will cook meat from a huge boar today and they will sell the leftover meat at the market, and she agrees with a smile. While they examine the tusks and fur, the beast suddenly notices something and stops. The protagonist asks what's wrong, and the beast asks him to look there. Far off, a pile of graves is visible, with one much larger than the others. They watch the fireball as Lucky Sumley runs forward to check, and the protagonist says it could be a ghost and tells her to wait. They end up at the cemetery and look around in silence. The man says the fireball has disappeared. Lucky says he was unlucky. Shannon slips behind the main character and grabs his clothes, and the man notices they are all shaking. The girl smiles shyly and apologizes for not being good with ghosts, and the main character pats her head. He says they are nearby if anything happens. If it gets too hard for her, she can always wait in the mini garden for monsters. The girl smiles, says that's fine, then walks away holding her head. Studying the largest tombstone, the protagonist reads the inscription and realizes the great sage Demort rests here. The guy tells everyone about Lucky and Shannon, and they look at him in surprise and ask him again. The protagonist says Demort is often called a great sage. Legend credits her with playing a major role in the country's development. Not only was she stunningly beautiful and kind, but her remarkable knowledge and wisdom led her, for the sake of the country, to go alone to the demon lord's castle and force the demons to sign a ceasefire, and the peace they enjoy is thanks to her. Shannon is surprised to hear she is an incredible person. The protagonist tells her it is only a legend, and they will never know if she truly was that person. The man says the sun is already setting, and it's time to return to the guild, and Lucky agrees. After a while, they enter the guild, look ahead in surprise, and someone loudly asks whether he means there is something wrong with their request. The man holds the paper and grows angry. The woman behind the counter repeats that the problem is in the details of the request. She says she cannot be sure any adventurer would accept that reward to carry out the request. The main character asks for an explanation. The man with the paper realizes he is the same animal Tamer from yesterday who showed up just in time, and despite being exactly the person requested, the protagonist takes the paper he offers, surprised. Several used fire rocks were found in the sewers, and they are seeking someone to clean and explore them. The man is surprised by the 30 gold coin reward. He tells the boy the reward is almost an invitation for adventurers to volunteer, asks what the point is, and expects the noble commander's request on their behalf to be accepted despite such trifles. The guild exists to handle the knightly order's errands, so they should stop complaining and approve his request. He insults the girl behind the counter. The girl asks if he really said that, becomes very angry, and asks who he thought it was. He is startled by her appearance, but she smiles calmly. She says she understands herself, while she pins it to the notice board. He walks away, calling after them that he doesn't care and they can do what they want. The main character asks the girl if she's okay. By continuing the quarrel, the girl explains she will only cause problems for others and that the only thing left is to learn from the experience. The girl is angry because she realizes he tried to insult the guild, or rather her. The main character grows afraid and considers the request. Walking through the sewer, the protagonist and Shannon hold their noses because apparently combustible stones ended up there and made a foul smell. Using hand purification, the man finds the same flammable stones but knows that won't be enough to collect the ones he needs, and the woman says she will check there in case she finds any missed stones. He asked her to be careful because the floor is very slippery, and she said she would be fine. As he can see, she says she has no problem keeping her balance, and she begins to spin but trips on her heel and falls backward. The main character catches her, reacting quickly and lifting the girl into his arms. Telling her it's wonderful that she believes in herself, he warns that too much confidence can be dangerous, and she apologizes while thinking about how close his face is. Holding her in his arms, the main character says it's time to go back because of a bad smell. The girl agrees. It's already night. He says it's already very dark. She thinks about how she feels. Suddenly, the main character remembers something and asks Shannon to join him at the hot springs. Shannon is surprised and embarrassed. The protagonist looks up at the winged creatures that have flown to him and now perch on his hands. The main character says it's amazing they can already fly, is told wyverns grow quickly though they only fly about 2 meters high, and that he and the skybird taught them to fly. He asks the gargoyle if it can fly, and the gargoyle answers confidently that it can because its wings are not just for show. The gargoyle confidently says he can carry both of them while flying, and when the man asks to fly around the outskirts of the capital, the gargoyle agrees. Turning to Shannon, the protagonist asks about herself, but she is preoccupied with thoughts of going to the hot springs together. He turns to her, startling her, then says she is with them, and it's time to go. A gargoyle carries them through the air. The protagonist says it's cool and is amazed it lifted them both. The man asks Shannon if she is okay. She agrees and then notices something. High above a beautiful city, they fly over a castle surrounded by a wall at its center. Surprised, the girl says it is very beautiful here and looks like a carpet of light, and the guy agrees that she is right and says he will have to show it to others. They thank the gargoyle, who is surprised and says he is glad to be useful because he is of little use in battle. A man tells him not to worry about the fights because he helps a lot with washing and cooking, and being able to fly is a great skill. He thinks of the tearful man. The main character tells him that if it works out, we will remove the seal from him, but he doubts he will be able to remain himself afterward. The man suggests that once the wyverns mature, they should fly together, and the gargoyle agrees. The protagonist hopes that someday he will have a familiar that can fly and carry Lucky as a passenger. Although this is probably impossible, the gargoyle knows one such monster. The gargoyle says the griffin is quite large, so it should be able to fly while carrying Lucky. As his best friend, he'll help them no matter what, then visit him as soon as the issue is resolved. They need to head back now. The hot spring water is bubbling. Everyone is amazed by the sight of the hot springs, and the ants begin jumping into the water to rest. Garuglia says the view is amazing. Shannon is embarrassed to be with everyone because she expected just the two of them, and the guy turning to her makes her nervous. Everyone is relaxing in the hot springs, enjoying how nice and warm it is, when the main character hears a splash. Lucky also got into the water and says it is really nice here. When asked whether he hates baths, he agrees. Lucky says he doesn't like washing, but enjoys the hot springs, which are spacious and deep, so he can put his whole body under the water. The pet tells the man he rescued her from the dungeon, gave her the chance to enjoy the hot springs, and she is very grateful to him. The main character says he should be the one to say thank you, since without him, he would have died in that flame of destruction. The pet extends its clawed paw toward him, and the main character, smiling, taps it with his fist. The ants jump into the water, and then the gargoyle tells them the next spectacle will be his dreamy dive. The next day, Parter puts on a beautiful dress, says it fits her perfectly, and adds that it looks very good on her. The protagonist, thanks to Mateo, says he also took the chance to forge armor for the ants and suggests they try it while they're here. The boy tells the blacksmith he didn't need to go to so much trouble, but the ants are pleased, and because orders for children's armor are rare, the blacksmith was happy to make them. He used only a small amount of material, so he shouldn't worry and should just accept them. The ants are taking the armor apart. The main character hands him something and asks if it's enough, but the blacksmith refuses payment, saying it is not for equipment but given in gratitude. The man says that if he objects, he can keep them and use them for penniless adventurers or a child who needs armor, making their equipment free. The blacksmith apologizes after E apparently put the protagonist in an awkward position, but he denies doing so. After leaving the so-called S-rank group, he received this money. He accepts it and says he will keep it somewhere else. They all wait for the blacksmith, who suddenly calls for Locke to come quickly, and Locke comes in asking what happened. Horrified, the man tells the boy that the flammable stones were just stolen, and Locke is surprised. Pointing to the window, the blacksmith says he saw a blue light coming from it, and the protagonist asks Lucky to follow the trail. Lucky sniffs and says the smell is still strong, so he tracked down the thief, but it's very crowded here and the pet barely fits into the room. The main character tells everyone except Lucky to be ready and wait in the mini garden of monsters, and he will call them when he needs help. Unlucky, a man races down the street past people, realizing they pulled it off so quietly, and he wonders who did it. At last they are back at Demort's grave, and the main character is surprised. The protagonist asks Lucky whether it is really here, and Lucky answers yes, then the trail ends after the grave. He scans the area and finds nothing suspicious, even if a ghost stole the stones. A sound suddenly catches his attention. He asks the heavenly bird what happened, and she hands him the flower of exorcism. The grave suddenly glows and slides back, revealing a staircase leading down that surprises everyone. The protagonist thinks he was fooled by that illusion. He had never seen a spell that powerful. Lucky asks how to deal with them. The passage is too narrow for him. He conjures a light and goes down, wondering if the stolen stones are here. Locke walks into an empty room, surprised to find such a space under a grave, and someone tells him guests are rare. A woman's skeleton in a dress appears, giving off an ominous aura, and the protagonist concludes she is a lick. The skeleton tells the guy that finding this place proves he is a high-ranking magician. The main character draws his sword and asks who he is, and the skeleton says it is the only creature that lives under its own grave, suggesting it may be her. Stunned, the man cannot believe she might be Demort. Demort says that even if she is, he will have no way to act. The man doubts any of this as a fairy speaks to him from above. She orders him to put the weapon away and asks what he intended to do with the Mort. Startled by Pixie, the protagonist hides his sword. Pixie warns him that if he's looking for a fight, he'll have to get past her first. She threatens to burn him until he becomes a juicy puddle of fire. Demort asks Lala to stop. She doubts her words made any sense. Lala says his introduction to her rage is cancelled. Demort asks the man what brought him here. He replies that several combustible stones were stolen today, and he came to investigate those thefts. They were following the thief's trail when he led them here, but he has no idea who the thief could be, and Lala gets scared after that. Pixie takes a loud sip and the man notices. Demort asks if Lala did it, and she apologizes loudly. Unable to find any in the dungeon, she stole them. Demort asks whether she told her not to cause problems for others. Pixie says that without those flammable stones, she suddenly goes quiet, and the protagonist asks if she has a reason for doing so. Demort says nothing special will happen. Without combustible stones, her life will simply burn, and the main character is left shocked. She wonders how long it's been since then. She remembers drinking while everyone watched her. The girl says the sake is almost gone. Have them bring her more. This is a Damort, a great sage, or rather an inveterate alcoholic. The horned man across from her trembles and tenses, saying he can't handle it anymore. Smiling, she tells him he can't even drink that much. He's a demon lord after all, but he doesn't care about her because he feels bad. She confidently says victory is hers, as he promised, and wonders whether he will end the war. The man glares at her and says the demons didn't want to start this war. People cut down all the trees on the hills and in the fields. The monsters were left without food, so he simply took some of the land back. They are demons who do not know how to grow food. The girl watches him silently. Demort tells him she will teach them to grow food and asks whether he will then end the war. After that, food was abundant, and the monsters' full stomachs satisfied them. When the war ended, Demort seized the chance to focus on research into nutrition. At the same time, she had a student named Lydia, who was very kind and smiling. Lacking magical talent, she had unmatched communication skills that made many trust her, and as someone who couldn't hold a conversation without alcohol, she admired that ability. She tells Lydia this should greatly boost agricultural crop growth and congratulates her. Tay says producing more food with fewer workers should resolve the food problem more quickly. Lydia turns to the master, who suddenly falls silent and seems upset, and asks if it is time to continue exploring the hidden treasures. Lydia says if they can create undead and put them to work, those undead could produce food continuously, and because undead do not need to eat, the labor required would be much lower. Demort tells Lydia she already agreed to stop researching the undead. At one time, she actively studied the undead and came very close to finishing her work, but that research should never be completed. Even if only theoretical, those capabilities could be used for military purposes and would certainly upset the world's balance of power, whether Lydia understands it or not. The girl asks what is wrong with that. The master replies that they are in peacetime now and no one cares about food shortages, so they should focus on research that is shaking the world. Lydia, like her, wants to achieve something that will put her name in history, so she decided to become her student because a trivial study would not do. The master tells Lydia to stop. She says that at this pace she will not become number one. After a while, Lydia disappeared along with her research on the undead. After that, her life became a search for Lydia that never succeeded, and her work on the undead seemed over, but her death was not final. Over many years, her magic mixed with the soil's magic and turned her into a bony undead creature called a lick. Now undead, she understood what it was like. In life, she had limitless magical power. When creating new rooms beneath the grave, she had to limit her magic and cast an illusion over the entrance. Using her own body as a test subject, she resumed studying the undead. If Lydia completes her research on the undead, she will have to devise a countermeasure, but it will not last long. As expected, without a steady supply of magic, she cannot sustain this body. No magic stones remain for her to extract. Believing this was her end, she noticed Pixie had flown into the room. A skeleton greeted her. Frozen, she realized it was undead, and it told her this was her grave. Pixie apologizes for arriving so suddenly, and the skeleton says it's okay, happy to have her first guest while noticing Pixie's bent wing. Pixie says loudly it is not her concern and asks if it looks ugly. The skeleton asks why. She says this wing keeps her from flying well. Everyone keeps telling her she should be ashamed of it. The master asks Pixie what she should do if, in her view, it is ugly. Pixie is a skeleton who is not only ugly, but also inspires fear. Also, she cannot fly, and it would be great if she could. The girl offers her hand to Pixie, says her name is Demort, and asks Pixie for her name, and Pixie laughs and says she is Lala. After that, they talked about many things. Lala asked whether that was the great sage's name. She was surprised to learn the skeleton before her was the sage. That is how each of them found a friend. She then told her about her imminent death and decided to return the magic stone. She will not let Demort die. The girl says she stole the combustible stone and asks that, whatever punishment he plans, he not involve Lala. Lala admits she stole the stone and asks him to punish her. Demort says everything is fine and they should just follow her orders. Pixie calls her a liar and an old hag and says she stole the stone on a whim, while Demort asks her to stick to her words and assures her everything will be fine. Demort asks her to accept this and not risk her life for someone who will soon die. Pixie says Demort is her first friend and does not want her to die. The protagonist looks at them and realizes such crimes often carry the death penalty. She could have beaten him and run, but she chose honesty and decided to atone. Two kind people share each other's guilt. The protagonist concludes that they both stole from the store and from the knight's order, and Pixie admits she stole from the store but says she did not steal from the knight's order. Do they know about the huge amount of stones stolen from the order? Pixie says she does not know what he means. Realizing this means another thief is here, the protagonist suddenly notices something outside. They come out and are shocked to see their capital burning in the distance. All three watch the capital burn. The protagonist tells Lucky it's time for them to return to the capital and to the pedigrees. Demortes notices the coffee and asks them to take her along. Right now in the capital, people are fleeing in panic from terrifying creatures. Warriors shout for everyone to run to the western gate as fast as they can. Then one warrior notices the way the man fell. Cursing, he rushes forward and saves the girl with a quick sword blow. The monster falls to the ground, exhausted, and the boy tries to catch his breath. Suddenly another monster appears, rushes at the man, knocks him to the ground, and nearly bites him. The next moment something big and heavy hit the monster. The girl with ears struck him with a huge hammer. The girl asks if he is okay. He replies, surprised that he is, and thanks her. She sees the situation is bad and wonders why it is happening now with so few adventurers. The protagonist runs toward her, turns to Rika, and the girl smiles, grateful that she came. He asks her what's happening. A huge number of monsters assigned to the knightly order suddenly became undead and ran wild. Everyone is surprised. Adventurers help fight back, but holy magic alone cannot stop the undead. Since the knightly order began removing monster bodies, many adventurers moved to other countries and asked foreign guilds for help, but aid will still take time to arrive. Everyone sees the monsters attacking the girl. She says she'll head that way and rely on luck. The girl protects the person who is attacked by the undead. Demort believes this situation came from those scientific works and the strange magic around them. He blames Lydia for everything. By using the combustible stones as a core to feed the undead, she completed her research on the undead and was behind the theft of all the missing combustible stones. The protagonist says to save the explanation for later, orders everyone except the wyverns to leave, and everyone agrees with him. Their leader tells the team they must destroy all the monsters and protect the people. He hands Patra the authority to give instructions. Patra accepts, surprised. Lockwoods is about to say something else, but notices they are under attack by orcs, and Demorte reacts by using the hellish dungeon to raise an enormous wall. Demort says Toucha will help too and that her magic is amazing. The protagonist introduces her to everyone and chooses the name Lala for himself. They are their allies, so there is no reason to be afraid. Demort says she is pleased to meet you. Demort says she's near death after using too much magic. Does anyone have magic stones? He turns to Patra, who says she has many of them but left the rest at home. Demort realizes they are high quality. With so many, she can envelop the whole kingdom in a sacred barrier and destroy all the undead. A man asks if it's true. Mort says she needs time to cast the spell. They will give her the time she needs. They rush the undead and defeat them with melee weapons and magic. The ants also manage to win and celebrate, but the main character warns them to be careful because the undead will come back to life. The corpse of the undead they defeated starts to fade, surprising the protagonist. He asks what this means, pointing out that even Shannon and the other adventurers cannot defeat them and only familiars can. Realizing this, the protagonist turns to Shannon and asks her to tell the other adventurers to support his familiars. His skill makes their attacks holy. The girl realizes it, and the main character senses a ray of hope. Consequently, the man's pets defeat the undead. The protagonist sees this as a win. They have already destroyed most of the monsters. Realizing there is almost nothing left, he notices the knightly order has arrived. All the adventurers glare at the knights, demanding to know why it's taking so long and ordering them to stop fooling around. The knights' faces are somehow gloomy, and the main character tells them to wait because something is wrong and one of the knights is aiming a bow at them. Then everyone fires arrows at the group, who just stare at the knights. Everyone froze as arrows flew straight at them. Then the arrows fell to the ground. Luckily, someone covered them with his tail, and the arrows did not stick. The protagonist thanks him for hardening his fur with magic. Lucky agrees. The guy asks the knights what they are thinking because they are their allies. The man realizes they have red eyes, and the lead knight says their enemies are ahead and tells them to kill them. The protagonist is asked what to do. The man says to just knock it out for now, and the gargoyle summons the wind spirits to him. The gargoyle fires a large magical sphere at its enemies, dealing damage. Spirits attack the knights as the protagonist watches, unsure if the spirits have succeeded, but the knights get back on their feet. Fearing it can still fly, the gargoyle forces the protagonist to decide what to do. A knight behind him swings his sword, and the man tries to dodge at the last moment. Suddenly something hits him in the face. It is a short girl from the guy's group. The knight tilts sideways. She asks him not to let his guard down, and he thanks Patro and apologizes, barely getting to his feet that night. Clutching his cheek, the knight tells the ant it hurts. The protagonist smiles and asks if the knight recognizes them. The knight answers that of course he does, unless they take him for an idiot. Looking around, he says the atmosphere feels strange, then notices his eyes look normal and thinks they must have fixed his brain, since magic couldn't knock it out but blunt force did. The man tells everyone to listen and says they should beat the knights, since a hard blow will bring them to their senses. Everyone understands. The knight asks what happened, and the man explains that an army of the undead attacked the capital, and someone then brainwashed the knightly order, which the knight understands. The protagonist tells him to leave and help evacuate the civilians, but he refuses, saying he is a knight of the knightly order and must fight to protect people. All the monsters that harmed the kingdom's people will feel his fierce anger when he rushes into battle. The main character asks him to stop because he cannot handle it alone, saying a small Mage is not worth the distraction, and it is better to attack big game, so the knight decides and runs toward the largest one. The knight screams, hits the undead, and asks whether he got it, but the undead just turns away. The knight realizes in horror that his attack did almost no damage, then the undead strikes him with all its might. Thrown back, he crashes to the ground and drops his sword. Battered, he barely pushes himself to his knees and looks ahead. An undead figure stands and swings a fist at the knight. The knight knows he is in trouble. The punch is already coming for him. With all his strength, he strikes the man, cracking the ground beneath him as everyone watches in shock. Patra held back the undead's hand, preventing it from hitting the man. The girl tells the guy that someone as weak as him should just run away from here. This makes him angry with her. He rushes toward her, knowing that even if she is an A-rank monster, 2 hits from the orc would still overwhelm her. Rushing forward, he kills the undead and must still reach Patra, but for some reason he is horrified. The massive undead swings again to strike, but Patra can do nothing and stands motionless. In the next moment, the undead strikes from above and crushes Patra and the knight. The protagonist, like everyone else, stares in horror at what the undead have done and refuses to accept what is happening. Locke remembers with horror every moment he had with Patra, how joyful she was, and how she laughed all the time. In despair, the protagonist falls to the ground, starts to cry, and loudly shouts the name of the Patra. A wyvern sweeps Patra into the sky and carries her straight to the protagonist. Everyone but Locke sees it. Lucky tells his master to breathe easy because Potter is actually fine, and the man raises his head, surprised. Stunned, Patra apologizes to him after nearly dying, and the main character cannot understand how she survived. Anna says Wyvern helped her and remembers how Wyvern pulled her out. The man asks when they became so big, and that night was saved too. Gargoyle reports that the dragons are growing very fast. The man asks whether this is serious and whether it could be due to his power as a tamer. He thanks them because they help him a lot. Shannon turns to Locke and says now is not the time. A crowd of undead stands before them, and the protagonist hands Patra a potion. Patra drinks it, and her skin begins to glow. Grateful, she thanks him because she can move again, and the wyvern picks her up as everyone is about to jump on them. The main character is surprised to see all the ants riding the wyverns in the gargoyle, because the wyverns look like little dragons. Attacking from above, they deal with the remaining undead. Feeling great, the main character now has to deal with the rest of the knights. A knight rushes at him from behind with a sword, and he dodges. He steps back and stares into the knight as the knight asks Locke if he intends to interfere. The knight says the knightly order will eliminate every adventurer in the guild, including Titus. If Locke dares to stand in his way, he will die as the attacker strikes the man, who barely holds off the blow. The man barely parried the blows, as one would expect from the head of the knightly order, but he had not expected to fight him directly. The knight then kicks the protagonist in the stomach, making him cry out in pain and fly backward, and Shannon anxiously screams his name. The protagonist thinks this is not cool. The man is very strong and aims at Marcus to bring him to his senses. Marcus insists he is sane, but Locke says they are the strange ones wherever they go and blames Titus, saying Titus is merely the leader of the adventurers who were killed. Marcus is the king's recognized head of the knightly order regardless of how they feel, and he is plainly superior to them. Marcus says this country only needs a nightly curfew, and the protagonist looks at him. Marcus stands with a sword and declares that if anyone stands in his way, let them die, and then he rushes at the protagonist. Lucky suddenly pushes him aside with his tail and tells him to be quiet. The protagonist watches awkwardly. The knight feels weak. Lucky calls him a noisy fellow, and the main character thanks Lucky for saving him. She asks Locke how he feels, and he says he is fine, but Marcus is still a concern. Marcus moves his finger first, then gets to his feet and moves awkwardly. Noting Lucky's odd movements, the protagonist asks which part of his body he hit. Lucky says he always moves like that. Marcus laughs. Marcus looks ahead and says it is absurd that they are joking in this situation because, as adventurers, they do not care about anything. The protagonist notices Marcus's tone change, asks Marcus who he is, and sees Marcus's eyes turn black. Marcus announces he is Lydia herself, the first student to taste the legendary sage's knowledge. As de Mort, she is the heir to her will, and everyone is surprised by her words. The protagonist asks what she wants, and Lydia in Marcus's body says she will give him an answer before he dies. Her goal is to make her research into the power of undead treasures known worldwide. This country will be sacrificed to help her reach this goal. She tells them not to worry about dying because she can still use them as undead. She tells him this is not a study because de Mort began it. Surprised he knows that, she says she finished it and now the study is hers. He asks if that makes her guilty of stealing the combustible stones, and she scoffs that he knows about it too. She took control of the head of the knightly order and stole them, while he searched for the criminal, and since he is that criminal, the whole thing is a farce. She believes this is the final note to end their conversation. Turning to the knights and the undead, she orders them to kill everyone here. Knight points ahead and laughs, telling them to die screaming, while the protagonist watches with displeasure. Lydia cannot understand what happened because most of them should already be resting. Saying they will see each other soon, she returns the body to the knight, and then he falls to the ground. Shannon asks where her real body is, and the protagonist asks Lucky to find her, but Lucky says he needs her scent, and someone approaches to apologize for the wait. Casting the spell, de Mort declares she will destroy any undead that dares to stand in their way. The main character tells them that they have already taken care of everyone. The demote is silent and looks around. De Morte sits down and says now is a good time for a beer, and the protagonist apologizes and asks her where they can find Lydia. De Mort admits, of course, that she knows, asks them to follow her, and leads them to a tower. The protagonist notices Lydia in a watchtower, just outside the city as they look up. The protagonist commands everyone but Shannon and Patra to stand ready in the monster garden. The rest leave. The main character wants to go through the door, but de Mortet tells him the entrance is not there. She casts a spell and directs the magic forward. The staircase reappears in the ground, and the main character realizes the entrance was hidden by illusion magic, so he must go inside. They go down the stairs and try to locate the foul smell. De Morta doesn't know how Lydia managed to live for over 100 years, and her body is unlikely to be in good condition. Everyone enters a room and finds a girl sitting in the center, closing a book and looking at them. Impressed they made it this far, she finds their arrival unexpected, since they should have run into a horde of undead outside, and it is puzzling how they got through. They defeated them all, and the knightly order finally came to its senses. Lydia doubts they are serious because she sees they are masters of jokes, but de Mort says it is not a joke. De Mort steps forward and tells Lydia they haven't seen each other in a long time, but Lydia does not recognize her. Lydia can't remember ever creating an undead like her, so de Mort uses the hellish dungeon to restore the girl's memory. Shocked by the ancient magic, she uses the water dragon's roar to undo de Mort's spell. Barely able to stand, the girl thinks of the flame and then asks if she is de Morte. Lydia says she became undead to stop her fame from spreading worldwide. De Mort replies that she would have been successful if she had been a better person, and the girl tells her to shut up. Admitting she trained even after her death so she would not lose to her again, the girl calls for eternal darkness and attacks her master. De Mort says that despite being very diligent, she is still a stupid child and attacks her as well. The two girls' attacks collide. Everyone watches in shock. The main character wonders if they have equal chances, and Mort notices she has grown stronger. Lydia loudly says yes, of course, then asks how she is supposed to think and how many years have passed since her death. Turning to Patra, who had gone off, the main character approaches Lydia, greets her, and looks at the girl in bewilderment. Patra suddenly hits Lydia in the face with her staff, sending her flying back. Lydia says it's not fair and that she can't fight them all alone. Patra glares at the girl, frightening her, and the main character realizes the girl nearly died because of Patra, so he sees Patra this angry for the first time. Lydia says she uses many shadow illusions that create clones, and she asks Patra how she does it and which of them is the real her. Patra immediately punches the real Lydia in the face, and Lydia realizes her illusion magic failed because her strong smell makes it easy to pick her out from the copies. Patrick says her death would upset Daddy, and she refuses to let that happen, while Lydia holds her bruised cheek and asks what she means. Demart puts her hand in front of Patra, apologizes for interrupting, and asks Patra to let her handle it because she wants to take responsibility and deal with her student. Patra nods and Demort agrees, suggesting that Lydia finish because they have lived too long. Demorty casts a magic orb, and Lydia is shocked that Demorty is using holy magic since Lydia thinks that is impossible. Is Demorty trying to commit suicide? Everyone watches in shock as Lydia explains that her use of holy magic left no trace of the undead, and it looks like she plans to do the same. Demort says this is the only way to destroy all the undead, assures them it will be fine, and suggests they die together, but the girl becomes angry. Screaming that she can't do this, Lala rushes toward her, tearfully begging her not to leave. Overwhelmed by meeting her, Demort begins to fade. Lala cries out her name. The protagonist conjures a spell with his hand and fires a magical attack that pierces Lydia. Horrified, she looks at the wound in her chest and screams, then falls down and lying there, asks him how he creates holy magic without chance while the guy continues to hold his hand. Apologizing to Demort, the protagonist says she shouldn't disappear because of someone like her. Lydia curses, furious she did not expect to face such a high-ranking magician, and says that with just a little more she could have defeated Demort. The girl promises she will return even stronger next time and they will see it. Then she begins to die. After that, Demort realizes it was not a real body. The protagonist agrees, saying there's no point in sacrificing oneself for something like that. Demort says it's incredible she got so emotional and misread the situation, and that he saved her. Pixie Lala hugs Demort, tears in her eyes as she thanks the heavens, relieved she did not disappear. Demort apologizes for worrying her, but they have to part soon, and Lala looks at her in horror afterward. All the magic stones are gone, and the stolen ones are unusable, so this is goodbye. Lala suggests Locke could share with them, but Demort says they must not bother Locke anymore. Smiling, the protagonist asks Demort about becoming his familiar. Becoming his familiar would let her use as many magic stones as she needed, and she still had to deal with Lydia. She asks if he is sure he wants to make her his familiar, a member of the dark race. He agrees only if he has holy magic. This could harm her, and at worst, she could simply disappear. Smiling, the girl says she'll accept any outcome as long as there is the slightest chance to live on, while Lala looks at her. The undead Queen of Darkness wants to befriend the main character, but he has to decide because there is one catch. Because she is of a dark race, the man says her dark magic will be greatly weakened, but she is not in danger of disappearing. She says everything is fine now and she is counting on him. Light surrounds her. The undead Queen of Darkness has been transformed into a holy beast and become his friend, unlocking an upgrade for one of the monster garden companions. After thinking about a small salt mine, the protagonist chooses it. The monster garden has been expanded. A man asks what will happen to Lala, and she is happy. Pixie is the Queen of Darkness's familiar. When the Queen of Darkness became his familiar, Pixie became his too. Smiling, the girl thanks him and asks him again to take care of her. The protagonist is also happy to meet them. Street repairs are underway in the capital. The man orders everyone to help rebuild the city, and he will go to the guild to report the request. At the guild, Rika meets him, says he's just in time, and he looks lost. Several serious-looking men are already waiting for him inside, and he is wondering what is going on here. The protagonist awkwardly looks at the two men waiting for him and feels the room's heavy, stifling atmosphere. The man wonders if the two are really sitting quietly or if something else happened, since they were always fighting, and Locke asks Ricky what's going on here. She makes a positive gesture and leaves the room smiling. He asks her to wait, but someone addresses him. A caller apologizes for calling Locke when he was very busy, and Locke says it's okay. Also, the head of the Knights stands and apologizes, saying his incompetence almost killed him and that he is truly sorry. Locke is surprised and tells them everything is fine now, and asks them to let him lift his head. He asks whether all members of the Knightly Order were brainwashed and what happened, and the knight says he is very sorry but does not remember. It may have started 6 months ago when he met a girl named Lydia. He also recalls that the girl appeared alone right in front of him during his training. At their first meeting, he felt like he was standing in front of someone he'd known for years, and the sweet scent he noticed might have been medicine or a spell. Calling in the rest of the knightly order, she forced them to collect monster bodies to help her develop the country, told them that adventurers were an unnecessary nuisance and that Titus was the source of evil, and they believed it. As a result, they seized the bodies of powerful monsters by force and planned to drive the adventurers out of the country. He wants to apologize to Titus, and the person responsible for the adventure expresses deep regret, surprising Titus and the protagonist. Titus says he can hardly believe that a man as proud as he is bows his head to him. Titus stands and accepts the apology. Marcus thanks him, and Titus offers his hand. He will do everything he can to calm the adventurers. For now they need to work together to begin rebuilding the city, he says with a smile. Marcus supports us because he looks forward to working together. The knightly order has sworn to work side by side with adventurers. The guild tried to find the location, but it proved difficult. Marcus, as leader of the knightly order, would be blamed for the whole incident, but the king chose to focus on rebuilding the city and would deal with Marcus later, and another man was reminded of himself. The kid, once a hero, escaped. Ricker says he slipped away during their skirmish with the undead. We need to find out whether the escape was accidental or deliberate. A month later, they finally arrive at the seaside and spend time cooking, relaxing, and drinking. Shannon is surprised that the sea here is simply amazing. The protagonist agrees and is also surprised by something. He looks at the girl who thought something was wrong when they first met, yet she has become more cheerful. The girl tells Locke it's all because of him and smiles to thank him for saving her. The protagonist laughs awkwardly. Lucky apologizes for interrupting, then asks why they came to the sea today. Locke says that all this time they had been busy helping to restore the city, thanks to the patron and others, and because the work went well, he decided to change the scenery. They all deserve to relax and enjoy a barbecue. Someone asks him about it. Barbecue is a way to cook meat and vegetables outdoors that brings people together, and everyone is happy they'll always be together. Let's discuss the details later, but for now we need to eat until we're full. Everyone agrees and starts eating the freshly cooked meat. Even the little bird on the man's head eats meat, and he suddenly realizes he still hasn't named it. The bird is startled, and the man asks what he should name her, thinking it over carefully. Naming her Yakitori makes her mad, but he says it was a joke and that barbecues are bad for him, so we'll have to see. After trying many names aloud, the main character surprises the bird, then suggests the name CL, and the bird becomes happy because she likes it. Seeing the happy bird, Locke realizes she apparently doesn't like food-related names, so from now on she is CL. Demort turns to Locke and says she can't help but point out that the meat is tender and juicy, pleasant to the taste. Perplexed, the protagonist asks Dumort who she is. Dumort takes the form of a skeleton and says that it is she. Now that she was here, she thought his human form would be easier on the eyes. It would even let her go into the city in that form. The man knew they had many magic stones, which raised the problem of how she would eat since she consisted only of bones. She asks him not to go too deep and to read the mood. He agrees, and Lala asks what kind of sauce it is, calling it a real delicacy. The man explains it's a special sauce he made from onions and ginger, and the subtle scent comes from the apples. Lala has never tasted a sauce this delicious and is very glad they met Locke. She is eager for more of his delicious dishes and can't wait, so she begins to pester him, and he agrees to eat a little. Then Demort turns the water into a slide for the ants, and the main character eats meat. The protagonist is fishing. Lucky asks what he's doing. Locke explains he catches fish by tying a hook and bait to a line and waiting for a fish to swim up and swallow it. Lucky says it sounds interesting and he'll try it too. Lucky dips his tail into the water, and the man points out there's no bait on it. He laughs and says with such an attractive tail, he doesn't need bait. The protagonist lies back on his pet's soft fur and thinks about how nice the weather is today. It's often helpful to just relax like this, and Lucky relaxes too, closes his eyes and agrees with the guy. Remember how precious every moment is when something suddenly tugs at Lucky's tail. Shocked, Lucky tells Locke he caught something, and the protagonist asks him to pull out the tail right now. The main character stares in shock at what has attached itself to Lucky's tail, and it is a mermaid who, surprised by the fluffy tail, is holding on with her hands. The main character and Lucky watch the mermaid, who still delights in her fluffy tail. Lucky asks what to do next. The mermaid does not look harmless. We must get her back to the sea. Lucky waves his tail, but the mermaid holds it tightly. The girl is pleased the fluffy pet is so energetic, and the main character encourages his pet not to give up. The next moment magic appears, pushing the mermaid back into the sea, and the main character asks what it was. Locke's friends turned to him and asked what had happened, since a loud noise had come from here. The man said it was nothing. The mermaid rose out of the water again. She screams at the Fluffy again and hugs Lucky's tail, which scares him. Shannon is shocked. Lucky says he won't hold back this time, and Mermaid asks him to wait. The mermaid insists she is not suspicious, only overcome with the urge to touch the fluffy charm and content with her tail. Lucky uses magic to send the mermaid back into the sea. Shannon says she's creepy and too suspicious. All the mermaids first shoots out of the water again, trying to touch Lucky's fluffy tail. Lucky is already afraid that she has returned, and he asks Locke to save him. Then he thinks about what to do, and Demort asks him to leave it to her. A girl conjures a huge ball directly above her head as everyone watches. With a smile, Demort says if the mermaid wants to stay, let her, and he will turn her into a fried fish so she will calmly choose to return to the sea. The mermaid says this is what she expected from the people of the land. They will immediately forcefully separate her from the fluffy ones. Then she will answer them in kind. A low growl calls Leviathan out, and something under the water begins to move. A giant water snake called Leviathan emerges, and everyone stares in shock. Leviathan's arrival surprises the girl, and the main character explains it is the most powerful resident of the deep sea. The mermaid says everything is correct, names Leviathan, the Seeking, and orders him to show his power. Leviathan addresses everyone, introduces himself as Leviathan, and says he is very happy to meet them. Surprised, the protagonist says it's nice to meet him too, and the mermaid asks what he means. If he doesn't fight, she can't be with the fluffy one. She knows he can't do that. They'll understand if she talks to them. The mermaid asks him what he means, because the people on land only speak with their fists, and you can only make friends with them by fighting. They praise their opponent, and before you know it, she's with the fluffy one. The mermaid asks him to show some of his power, and he agrees, beginning to cast a spell. Leviathan unleashes the delicate form of Water Dragon's Tempest, driving the water behind him into a raging surge. Many are surprised by his strength. This support magic rivals Fenrir's. Demort becomes curious. The girl says she will reveal her true power to him and unleash illusion magic, then turns into a skeleton and summons the ancient spirits to her. Leviathan screams in shock that he is a monster, then dives under the water, surprising everyone. When the mermaid asks where he went, Leviathan trembles and admits he is afraid of monsters. Lucky looks at the mermaid and says she knew he was afraid of ghosts. The girl calls him a sly fox. Smiling, she says it doesn't matter, admits she likes feet, and asks the guy why they shouldn't become friends, but the main character immediately refuses. After exchanging blows, the mermaid asks if that makes them comrades, but the man says it does not, and she worries that at this rate she will have no one in her village to turn to for help. A man asks her what kind of trees they are. The mermaid notes he has a gargoyle, wyverns, and orange ants. Calling out loudly, the girl tells the guy to help them too. The request is for help for their village, but the main character does not understand exactly what is needed. The mermaid says strange fish have appeared there and caused serious trouble, and she asks for help again, but Locke does not understand her. The girl considers how to explain this to May. Leviathan turns to May and asks permission to tell them everything. Emerging from the water, he tells them that 3 days ago a village of mermaids on the sea floor was attacked by a group of fishermen. Fishmen are half human with prominent fish, squid, or shark features, while mermaids have more human traits, making them separate species. So far, the mermaids have never been hostile to the fishermen, but they are not close either. After 100 years of peace, the village had almost no residents with combat experience, and a sudden attack allowed the fishermen to capture the village and take many mermaids captive. Originally meant to be the guardian deity of Mermaid Village, he is ashamed to admit he is not very good at fighting. May was not in the village at the time, so she was safe and came to ask the locals for help. The protagonist understands this. Therefore, Leviathan politely asks them to help. Even taking their story into account, they can't fight if they can't breathe underwater, yet Leviathan tells them not to worry. He took some air grass with him, and the main character wonders what it is. Leviathan explains that eating air grass will let him breathe underwater and make water pressure not a problem. The man did not even know such a thing existed. It can only be collected in the mermaid village. If he helps free the village, he can take as much of this grass as he wants. The man says he cannot put the others in danger. The ant girl asks him to help them. Surprised, the main character finds everyone else wants to help the mermaids and says that if that's their wish, he agrees too. Asking whether they will really help, the mermaid thanks them. She can squeeze the soft charm as much as she wants. Then she grabs Lucky's tail again. Without a sound, he uses magic to throw her into the water. I still wonder if she is alive. They decided to help the mermaids. He cannot believe it and is amazed by the properties of the aerial grass. Shannon swings his sword and realizes moving quickly underwater will be much harder. The other man sees it too and knows fighting underwater will be beyond them. The ants on the gargoyle and the wyverns are swimming quickly in the water and look very happy. The wyverns were impressive, even using their wings here, and the gargoyle moved quickly using wind magic. The main character should try too, but he realizes that Lucky cannot swim. A man thinks this is too much for Lucky, but the group agrees to move forward, and everyone except Gargoyle can enter the monster garden. Together they swim up to the cave, and Leviathan explains that it leads to the mermaid village. The mermaid tells them to swim ahead and, if possible, keep up with her, and they all swim into the cave. Arriving in a mermaid village, the main character looks around in surprise and realizes where they are. May asks whether it is a fascinating sight, since a special magic hides the village from the sea, and no one has set foot there for centuries, so he should feel honored. Leviathan suddenly grabs the three of them with some kind of rope, shocking everyone. May asks what he is doing, but he tells them to be quiet. A shark-shaped fishman swims past the tee, surprising the protagonist, and Leviathan says he's probably patrolling. He saw the rest of the mermaids in the queen's castle at the village center. After they escaped, one man asks whether to attack directly, but that is impossible. They will use the alley that leads to the castle. Leviathan tells me he needs her to lead them. They realize she's gone. Me has already gone outside and is asking the fishman to free everyone. She tells him she has made friends with the lock, but he suddenly attacks her, and she asks him to wait because she has not finished speaking. However, Leviathan protects me by disabling the fishman and asks the mermaid what she is doing. May says she will not let such a pathetic coward take part in the dastardly attacks. They do not have time for that now. A fishman attacks Leviathan from behind, but the protagonist blocks the strike and saves him. The fisherman swims back and realizes they may have been seen. Now they'll have to break through. He circles them quickly. The protagonist thinks he is fast, but he can't build enough speed to maneuver. Gargoyle asks Locke to grab hold of him. The protagonist woos him, and together they capture the moment he hits the fishman. They leap from the water and look down together, wondering if they'll win. Instead, the fishman simply sits on his knee, and the main character is surprised to find there is no effect at all. The main character denies this, since he would not say it had no effect at all. The fishman swims quickly around the main character again, as the man watches closely. The protagonist asks the gargoyle to move 50 centimeters to the right, and the gargoyle agrees and moves as asked. The man then says the next turn should be 70 centimeters to the left. Gargoyle does what it needs to do. The gargoyle asks what's happening. As the protagonist expected, the fishman keeps repeating the same movements. His eyes were likely washed like those of the knightly order. It is unclear who is to blame. He appears unable to make accurate attacks. This means they can resist him. Allow the gargoyle to move 3 meters diagonally to the left. Then the protagonist jumps on the fishman, orders Leviathan to act, asks it to bind them with its tentacles, and Leviathan agrees. Leviathan extends its tentacles and, together with the main character, embraces the fishman. Leviathan then says they swaddled him, but he doubts he can speak. Unable to talk to them normally, he wondered who was behind this, but for now he had to hurry to rescue the others. They tied up many more fishermen, in fact every guard in the village. There were far fewer of them than expected. The mermaid turns to San and asks why he tied her up, and he says that if he had allowed her to move freely, there would have been countless problems, which makes her angry. Several mermaids swim up to them and turn to May, who beams at Madeline's arrival and hugs her. Saying she's very happy, the girl sheds a tear, and the protagonist is surprised to see it has crystallized. Pearl tears are produced by mermaids with strong magic when they feel intense emotions. Madeline asks the boy if he is Locke, introduces herself as the one honored to serve the queen, and thanks him sincerely for helping them. The man says it's not worth it because these aren't all the mermaids. Madeline says many of the queen's mermaids were taken to the fishermen's village. They were locked here, and the place was used as a prison camp. Understanding this, the protagonist knows they must go immediately to help the others, and she asks him to wait while she gives her pearls. Locke is surprised to find it is the same pearl, and they give it to him as a token of their gratitude. The girls look at him and ask if he can help them again, and the main character agrees. In the Fishman village, patrols sweep the area, and the protagonist watching them thinks there are a lot. Right above them is a ship owned by humans that seems out of place. There is a man and a fish man on the ship. Realizing he can speak and might be the leader, he is asked to look there and is surprised. Seeing a mermaid in a cage, he is shocked to realize they are selling mermaids. Many people notice someone trading mermaids and express surprise. The ship with a mermaid aboard leaves the shore, alarming the onlookers. The heroes decide to help free the mermaids, and one urges them to reach the ship as fast as they can. The hero says there may be other captive mermaids, no longer aboard, and proposes returning to their secret lair to rescue everyone. As Locke said, the little animal sets off to follow the ship and find its secret lair. The young man realizes they must find a way to save the mermaids trapped in the fishing village. The mermaids request permission to take on guard duty to help free their sisters. Mermaids say they are trained to fight and ready to act despite the danger. Worried about the mermaids' safety, the hero objects, but they insist on joining because they consider it their duty. Lucky proposes a solution to the problem, showing enthusiasm and eagerness to help. Madeline asks if the mermaid and Lucky can handle the task together, and Lucky confidently says he believes in their abilities. Admitting the heroes might be stronger than him, the dragon wins the others' trust. Surprised, the girl asks how this is even possible, showing her bewilderment. Ready for action, the mermaid and the little animal move forward with determination to finish the task. She proudly trusts their combined strength and emphasizes the importance of teamwork. Lucky casts a powerful spell that creates a whirlpool to distract the sharks. The heroes watch in alarm, fearing the consequences of the heroes' actions. A huge whirlpool forms, sucking in water to carve a deep hole and leaving traces of magic around it. Locke notices the water pulling back, exposing the seabed, and is surprised by the unusual sight. The hero and the animal decide to use the situation to their advantage, noting the enemy's limited movement and that this is their chance to act. Madeline urges anyone who can move to attack her opponents, showing she is determined and ready to act. Mermaids and heroes join the fight, using their abilities to attack enemies. The massive shark is stunned and shocked, caught off guard by the attack's power. Locke is surprised the shark can talk. The enemy watches the chaos, trying to figure out what is happening around him. The young man demands that the opposing leader release the captive sisters, speaking with determination and confidence. The shark leader says he is confused about what is happening, but insists he will not let the heroes take them. The leader calls on the fishermen to unleash their power and destroy the heroes, showing fierce resolve and readiness for battle. The sharks attack fiercely, showing a clear increase in their strength. Locke sees the opponents are much stronger now, causing alarm and surprise. Lucky fights actively, using his abilities to defend against shark attacks. Fenrir sees the enemies moving very slowly and knows they are not a serious threat. The enemy channels all their magic into a massive attack, creating intense tension. The shark displays its new powerful body. The enemy claims a magic sphere makes him invincible by greatly increasing his speed. The enemy uses the sphere's power cautiously to avoid hurting himself. A shark leader holds a mysterious ball, and a little girl sitting on the dragon's back snatches it from his grasp. The girl in dragon says she now has a magical sphere and calls the hero daddy. Shark hero tries to get up but remains weak as Locke praises the girl. Noticing the sphere ringed by magic similar to the mermaid leaders, the hero feels surprise and alarm. Agreeing to help, the mermaid assumes the sphere used data from her research. Claiming he cannot do without his magic sphere, the enemy asks the heroes to return it. The mermaid reacts in surprise as the magic sphere falls and shatters, leaving the shark hero stunned. The mermaid comforts the shark, telling him nothing terrible has happened and he will soon find something better. Locke asks the shark whether his name is Pedro. He does not understand why he controlled the fishermen and attacked the mermaids, showing he misunderstood the situation. Pedro admits he was exiled from his tribe and wanted to prove himself. For members of the shark tribe, the size of their fins determines how much magical power they have. Shark says a few days ago a strange woman and a merchant came up to him while he sat watching the moon. The woman and the merchant offered Pedro a magical sphere, saying they wanted to help him improve. He explains that if you place this sphere in a sleeping fisherman's hand, you can gain power over him and surprise the other characters. The heroine asks Pedro why he attacked their group. Pedro says he was ordered to attack the mermaid village and was promised a magical sphere in exchange for the captured mermaids. The mermaid felt shocked and indignant, unable to understand how the shark could be so merciless. Shark Hero admits he was determined to prove his worth at any cost. Locke asks where the mermaids the shark gave to the merchant were sent. Pedro doubts it but thinks they were sent to Brandon. Startled, Locke turns to Demorta. Determined, the mermaid says the process will take time but can be done. Demart warns Pedro he must prove his worth by his own efforts now, not by a temporary power that could destroy him. The mermaid points out he broke the sphere, which is why Pedro is worried. The heroes make their way to Brandon. Locke believes mermaids are hiding somewhere in this city. The dragon explains that those who cannot become human will stay in the sea, and the rest should be quiet in the city. Locke notes reports that some mermaids can transform into humans, highlighting their unique abilities. Mermaids say they sometimes become human to visit the city safely and wear special clothes that dry quickly. A mermaid reveals that sunken ships on the seabed hold valuable treasures you can use. Locke happily reports finding the mermaid trader's secret lair and urges the others to move on. They notice there are no guards at the building, which surprises them and makes them question where their target is. Firmly, the hero tells the others to stay where they are while he handles all the problems himself. Locke finds the door open and shows displeasure at the security's carelessness. The hero carefully inspects the dark room full of boxes and chains, senses danger, and prepares for possible opponents. Locke spots several cages holding noisy, aggressive-looking monsters. The young man sees the monster's unnatural appearance and feels anxious and surprised. Locke finds an intricate magic circle carved into the floor, showing the area is used for experiments and research. The hero realizes he is in a place where disgusting experiments on monsters were performed and sees a magic circle used for synthesis. Mermaids and other creatures swim inside a sealed water tank, startling the hero who watches. Noticing the glass is too thick for the mermaids to hear, the young man states firmly that he has come to help them. Locke inspects the room with the magic circle and realizes he cannot open the door. The hero finds the door locked by a magic-reinforced lock, making it nearly impossible to breach. The hero speaks to a creature in a cage that offers to reveal the key's location. A caged creature introduces itself as Dracul, a representative of the Erekan gods and the grandson of Arid's leader, then asks who the hero is. Dracula offers to free the captive, who promises to tell him about the key and says he was locked here after the attack. Locke agrees to help but insists on freeing the mermaids first, saying this is not the time for talking. The mermaids thank the hero for his help, and he asks whether they're all right. The hero asks whether all the kidnapped mermaids are present. A mermaid tells the hero the queen was taken to be auctioned, leaving him stunned. Locke warns anyone who can transform into a human to flee immediately because he fears the hall's strict security. The mermaids admit that none of them can become human and sincerely regret it. Locke asks Shannon and Gargoyle for help. Turning to Locke, Dracula thanks him for his help and assures him he will repay the debt. Trapped in the cage, the creatures ask the hero for help because they are also in a difficult situation. Shark says Pedro's magic could not control them because they also have strong magic. Shark asks Locke for help, and Locke admits they were handed over to the traders after they lost control of the situation. The hero freed the remaining captives, contacted them, and expressed relief and gratitude. Locke notices the only remaining mermaid is the queen, so the rescue must continue. The young man suggests using Lucky to find the queen by scent and gets his consent. The queen offers to help Mother, and others also volunteer to join. The heroine reveals that May, who seemed like a simple girl, is actually a princess, not a mother, surprising the other heroes. Locke accepts the queen's help, but warns that she must follow his orders to complete the mission successfully. The group lays out their plan and says that at worst they will have to use the gold to save the queen. Locke asks Madeline to prepare more treasure. Lucky confirms the queen's scent leads to this exact spot. Locke says he'll check around while the others wait outside and notes the queen has not yet entered the auction room. Apologizing for the interruption, the queen insists on going with them, determined to help. The hero confidently promises to bring back the heroine's mother, and she agrees to trust him, showing hope. The queen asks Locke to care for her mother, and he agrees, stressing his responsibility and dedication to her well-being. Locke enters the shop, where a man regards him with a tired expression. Noticing Locke is well informed about his affairs, the salesman asks how he learned those details. Offering cash, the hero signals his willingness to pay for information and service. The interlocutor laughs at the heroes, showing they really know what they are talking about, and invites them to follow him. They say they offer a wide range of special monsters, from human-like types to fused creatures. The man stresses that a very rare creature was just delivered, sparking the hero's interest. The hero spots odd behavior from a hooded figure, who orders him to stop while sensing the tension. The hooded man reacts to the foul smell and asks what caused it. The man says the smell is not from him, but the hooded man insists the odor is very strong and foul. The hooded man studies the hero closely, his eyes glowing to show rising tension and suspicion. Admitting the smell is odd and coming from the protagonist, the stranger begins to worry that it may cause their mission to fail. When the woman asks if Locke knows another girl named Lydia, he is surprised because he does not know her. The hero studies the woman closely, and she wonders if it's true. The hooded man apologizes if he accidentally scared the heroes and notes he is emitting magic like Lydia's. Locke and the man talk about who he is, pointing out how mysterious and unknown he remains. A character says this man is the witch Riza, who makes magical tools, though even he does not know all the details of her work. Locke realizes he needs to be careful around a woman who knows Lydia and makes his concern clear. The man asks Locke if he's glad they've finally reached the auction. For the first time in the auction's history, the Mermaid Queen is offered as a special lot. Locke realizes the Mermaid Queen is May's mother. One character notes that although all mermaids are seen as beautiful, this queen's striking figure draws special admiration. To his surprise, the hero discovers the Mermaid Queen is worth about 300 million. The man points out that queens are a fighting species, so their price is always high and non-negotiable. He warns the hero that even 300 million may not be enough to buy the mermaid, and says Gris has long been interested in her. A dangerous trader, the son of a wealthy merchant, will spend huge sums on whatever or whoever he wants. Recognizing the danger, Locke decides to delay his attempt to capture the mermaid because it is too risky. The hero discovers the Mermaid Queen's price will be cut so much she can be bought cheaper at an auction. Locke agrees to the proposal and asks what they must do to enter the auction, since it is usually a closed event for buying creatures. Grateful, the man thanks Locke for his help and hints that the auction will be in 6 days at 1800. The man promises the young man that his protection will ensure safe entry to the auction site. The heroine worries about her mother's safety because she will be sold at auction in 6 days. Locke sees the Mermaid Queen's location is protected by very powerful magic and realizes she cannot be freed by normal means. He recommends rescuing the mermaids peacefully, if possible, and decides to consult the guards first. A band of heroes comes upon a dragon, startled by their arrival. The dragon recognizes the hero and looks surprised. Locke asks why he was captured again. Draco is frustrated that the city guards ignore warehouses full of monsters, revealing the system's corruption. The guard angrily orders him to be silent, and Draco points out that the guard calls him a liar only because he is a half-breed, reminding him that he already spoke about monsters created by fusion. The guard reacts with disbelief to the dragon's words, says no one would believe such heresy, and insists the warehouse belongs to Chad, repeating it to stress its importance. The guard explains that Chad saw it as a distribution and rehabilitation center that did a lot for the city, even though he was involved in the creature trade. The hero realizes Chad is selling creatures, surprising the others. Draco asks whether they took bribes from Chad, notes the guards are corrupt, and calls for a proper investigation instead of ignoring the issue. Standing beside Lucky, the heroine sternly warns the guard that he cannot insult people at will. Showing determination, the guard orders the dragon taken away and vows to use the full range of punishments. Locke realizes the local guards are colluding with Chad, revealing corruption in the system. Grateful, the hero thanks the dragon for his help and vows to free him soon, making clear he will keep his promise. The young man suggests they discuss the situation with all the other participants while preparing for further action. The hero says you cannot accuse a merchant who is closely tied to and controls the city without convincing evidence. Locke warns winning the Mermaid Queen at auction will be difficult, especially if key players like Chad and Grizz get involved. The heroes decide they need to learn more about Chad and Grizz because there is another way to solve the problem besides bargaining. The heroes talk with local residents to gather more information about the situation. The hero concludes by saying they are certain the man seen on the ship is Chad. Locke notices that everyone in town says Chad is a good, wonderful person, no matter who they ask. When the heroes ask about Grizz, opinions shift, and some call him a stupid son or the worst, showing a negative attitude toward him. Some accuse Grizz of raising a private army of vicious monsters to seize the entire city, alarming the heroes. Locke sees that if the rumors are true, he must face not only Chad, but also Grizz, so he decides to act. Lucky says they are hungry and stresses the need for a quick solution to the current situation. Laughing, Shannon says she isn't hungry, though that could excuse her behavior. Lacko apologizes for not having eaten yet and offers to help. A rare gray wolf stands before the hero, surprising the other characters. A group discussed selling a wolf, noting it looks interesting and could be valuable. Locke makes it clear he will never sell Lucky, showing how much he loves the animal. A man gives money to solve a problem or make a purchase. Smiling, he announces he will buy the gray wool for 30 times the market price, surprising the hero. The young man firmly refuses to sell Lucky, insisting he will not do it for any amount of money. Grizz introduces himself as the only son of a wealthy Fandel merchant, showing his high status and confidence. Locke insists he will never sell Lucky, saying how special it is. Grizz makes clear to the hero that there is nothing in the city he cannot buy, showing his wealth and influence. Proudly claiming that everything in the city belongs to Mr. Grizz, the older man draws admiration from those around him. The butler happily points out his popularity and authority. People nearby keep shouting Grizz's name, showing support and recognizing his power. The hero refuses to sell Lucky, holding firm against Grizz's persuasion and pressure. Lucky angrily tells Chris to be quiet, which shows either he doesn't understand the situation or he is being stubborn. Lucky speaks sternly to the man, stressing the importance of his words and saying he will not repeat them. The wolf states firmly that even after 1,000 years no one, not even an insect, has the right to command him, and he is loyal only to one master, Luke. Griss's men lost heart and felt powerless against Lucky's strong spirit. Locke sees Griss's men under heavy pressure and overhears Lucky say the weak have fallen. Griss admires Lucky and says his loyalty deserves respect. The merchant offers to feed Lucky anything he wants and invites the hero to join. The hero is surprised to learn the merchant withstood Lucky's pressure, and Griss tells the common man to multiply the number by 100 to get the amount. Locke agrees to the offer, but looks at the merchant with doubt or displeasure. The hero offers to share where he found Lucky and asks how he feels about it. He demands the mermaid queen in exchange for money. Grizzly flatly refuses to give up the queen, saying the mermaids are far more valuable and he cannot do it. The queen also plays a role in Griss's plan, calls him poor and says this discussion is inappropriate for his level. Grizzly says Locke is interesting and praises his courage, noting that few people can stand up to him. The merchant asks the group to come with him. The heroes pass through a grand interior where statues and decorations create an impressive atmosphere. The heroes press on down the corridor, surrounded by the lavish grandeur of the space. Even a mansion this huge can't hold everyone, the hero notes, emphasizing how vast it is. Locke says the mansion is enormous, and Griss says he could never earn enough to afford such a place. Grizz displays rare figurines, and the heroes spot white wolves. Locke believes Grizzly collects wolves for their fur and says they look like mini Luckies and are rare monsters. The hero sounds doubtful, but the older man says everything is set to continue the conversation. The boy agrees cautiously, warns it could be a trap, and Granz reassures him that it's lunchtime. Locke agrees cautiously but keeps warning about the danger, while the merchant smiles and says food is the best thanks. The hero watches the animal eating eagerly and enjoys the sight as it happily devours the food. Lucky notices there is no smell of poison or anything like it in the room and reassures Locke, telling him not to worry. Riz says he never uses low tactics. The merchant insists he can accomplish anything without using dishonest means. The older man suggests moving on to the main topic, noting that their wishes have already been met. After dinner, Lucky, feeling full, goes out into the garden, and the hero volunteers to start the conversation first, hinting at a plan to help the mermaids. The Locke admits he does not know if a boss of Lucky's level exists outside the royal capital, since the wolf was one of the 10th floor bosses. The older man notes the hero is well informed, and adds that a boss like that is recommended for the 5th grade. Griss explains he constantly gets different information because he is the son of a merchant. Grit recommends training with mermaids. The heroes learn the fishermen will soon attack the city, and the news causes surprise and alarm. The merchant says that in the past, Chad used a disaster prediction device to predict attacks by white wolves and by other cities. He wants his army ready for underwater combat, especially against an enemy led by a queen. Griss plans how to reduce damage to the city with help from mermaids skilled in underwater combat. The man says paying a lot for a fortune-telling device looks suspicious. Suspicious of a hidden agenda, the hero thinks something is wrong with Chad's predictions. Locked questions suggest Chad is secretly involved in illegal trade in creatures and in experiments with chimeras. Gris explains how Chad quickly won the town's trust by quietly setting up free food and medical distribution points. He notes many guards are bribed, which makes things harder for the heroes. An older man angrily says the traveling vendors are behaving disrespectfully in his town. Locke realizes Gris is not what the servants say he is. Locke says Gris is very smart, but he has also heard people call him just a stupid rich man's son. The man agrees with this opinion, saying he is indeed regarded that way. Gris says these conversations are easier when everyone shares the same understanding of the situation. The hero states a firm intention. He asked whether he could count on the older man to help get evidence against Chad. Locke asks again and suggests it would be nice if the request were met. The hero asks Gris to hand over the Mermaid Queen if he wins her at auction. Locke surprises the merchant by offering several underwater trainers. The hero says he can help right now, drawing the attention of everyone around him. The older man looks surprised. Grizzly approaches the hero, asks his name, and confirms it is Locke. The merchant says the hero has earned his attention and offers to cooperate and is eager to start working together. Locke accepts the offer, and his partnership with Gris begins with a handshake. The heroine explains the sphere manipulates people and also gathers mana. Her theory is that the mana in the sphere is being gathered to resurrect a demon that once threatened the world. Based on old documents, the girl says such powerful magic is beyond human ability. Surprised, Locke asks for details and suggests this may be the same demon they mentioned earlier. The heroine notes that, based on the available information, the spheres are highly likely to be connected to this demon. Demort admits doubt, noting her remarks are merely speculative. She wonders who could have come up with such a plan and warns that resurrecting a demon could bring great danger to the world. Resolute, the hero says they must urgently find the sphere's creator to stop the demon's resurrection. Locke identifies Risa, the magical tool dealer at Chad's shop, as the prime suspect. Seeing the importance of the situation, the young man asks to mortate so he can continue studying the demon and better prepare for the upcoming events. Locke reveals he has been gathering information about Chad and his ties to the demon, underscoring the importance of the upcoming auction. They stand in line outside Mr. Nada's soup kitchen, where people pick up food the day before the auction. Crowds line up to get their share of food, filling the area with noise and energy. Residents thank Mr. Chad for the free meals and highlight his kindness and care. The hero spots a free healing point with people waiting in line, amazed at the scale of Chad's activities. Yuta reassures the other character that their turn will come soon and everything will be fine, but they remain doubtful. Lucky realizes Chad tricked everyone. Locke regrets that Chad took part in questionable activities, even though those actions appeared noble. The characters see the guild's announcement of an imminent attack by fishermen, which alarms the town's residents. Chad posted a notice on the bulletin board warning adventurers of a possible fisherman attack in the next few days. The commoner doubts whether the fishermen will actually come, as Gris predicted. Locke notes reports that Mr. Chad's prediction proved true and surprised many. They spot a child who looks familiar and are surprised to see him. A terrified child screams as the hero asks what happened and tries to calm him. Lucky shows interest in the child, but the child pulls back in fear, calling the beast a big dog. The child asks for help, and Lucky says he's not a dog. The hero sees things get worse as the child keeps screaming in fear, and the others try to calm the child but fail. At last the baby stops crying, surprising the heroes. They see the baby is braver now and ask how it happened. Shannon offers to share a cookie with a child to calm him and asks if he is hungry. The child admits he's hungry, but says it's not the main problem, suggesting there are more serious issues. The boy says in alarm that his little sister has gone missing. He says his sister hurt her leg when she tripped, so she went to see a doctor. The boy went to get food himself, but when he came back, the food was gone from the tent. The heroine offers to help, saying Lucky's keen sense of smell can find his sister. Eagerly, the boy agrees to join the heroes and start searching for his missing sister. Lucky agrees to be called Dog for now and says he appreciates the nickname. The hero reassures him that everything is fine. Now it's up to Luck. Moving like the wind, the beast shows incredible speed and earns admiration from the other characters. Soaring through the air, the wolf shows his freedom and joy in movement. Locke thanks Shannon for helping with the baby, and she reveals she has a younger brother who is a little younger than her, and he praises her for being good with the kids. Shannon asks if the boy's parents are nearby, and he says they are not around. The boy describes how a pack of white wolves suddenly attacked the town where they lived, and his father and others came to defend it. The boy says they were about to go somewhere, but you tripped and got hurt, leaving them with painful memories. Locke spots an odd tattoo on the boy's neck. The heroes approach a large building. Locke and Shannon see a sign that says Chad Con Residence and are surprised to be there. After making a plan of action, the hero decides to talk to Gris and stresses the importance of the situation. Locke suspects Chad used the free healing points to abduct orphans who came for treatment, shocking the others. Gris greets Locke in a familiar, friendly way. Concerned for the child's safety and well-being, the boy asks Gris to watch him for a while. Gris agrees to help, and Locke says he has questions he wants to ask. Shannon apologizes to the boy, saying they could not bring his sister back, but she will keep searching. Assuring the boy, the heroine says they won't give up and will bring Nayuta back, stressing their determination. Point out that she always says that, then laugh to show he's happy or embarrassed. The Dark Hood character says Dob is not here now, sounding doubtful or disappointed. Locke asks whether the woman had mentioned Lydia earlier, saying this is important to their current situation. The young man says he heard rumors about Lydia while walking around the city and stresses those rumors may be key to understanding what is happening. A hooded woman deduces that Lydia is hiding on the west coast and provides specific details about a likely location. The hero says Lydia is seriously injured or at risk and links it to the flood that followed the Horde's departure from the capital. Locke says he decided to recount his attempts to find someone, but his account may not be reliable. Grinning, the masked character says she's hurt, then adds she'll say hello to Dob. Locke says they will now share information with Pedro and the mermaids, meaning this stage of the investigation is finished. Locke asks if this is Mr. Chad's house, sounding surprised and cautious. The guard reacts sharply to the hero's arrival, demanding to know his identity and showing distrust or irritation. The guards at the gate recognize the hero as a fan of Mr. Chad and offer help, showing they are ready to support him. The man hesitantly agrees to let Shannon inside for a short time. Apologizing for what happened, the heroine tells the guard checking on her that she's fine. Cautiously, the heroes enter the building, aware there may be traps. A huge courtyard lies before the building, and they are surprised by its size. A pack of red coyotes appears and attacks the heroes. The hero volunteers to fight the B-class monsters, noting there are many but they are not a serious threat. Locke turns to Patra, who is enjoying herself. Petra asks the animals for forgiveness and explains they must pass through this place. The animals react aggressively, ready to defend their territory or block the hero's movement. Patra's rear view, resembling a giant ant, grows aggressive, bares its teeth and prepares to attack, making the situation tense. Animals gather around the girl, stepping back from her words. The heroine speaks happily to the animals, showing the situation was resolved peacefully, likely because of her efforts. Locke believes the little girl points out that children are inside the building ahead, and she calls the hero Daddy to show trust and respect. The heroes climb the stairs and find a basement entrance, and one of them notes it may be where the prisoners are held. Shannon admires Chad, says he is very smart, likely referring to his strategy or actions. Inside, the group talks about earning more by selling commoners instead of healing them, and they note that the synthesized magical beasts are expensive, highlighting the commercial side of the situation. The worker wants to join the next raid, offering to help and prove himself. The hero sees the sleeping flower working and thanks CL for her help. Locke calms the children, tells them not to worry, and asks how they feel. Recognizing Raylan, the girl calls his name with joy, confirming he came to help. The heroine says a way out will be found if you don't give up, and adds that she had predicted help would come. The girl admits she was always taught that women should be strong, and notes everything is happening as Ryland said. The heroine refuses the offer and grips the keys to show how urgent the situation is. The girl says picking walks is a lady's job, which surprises the hero and makes him ask if she is serious. The heroine says she had long sought a chance to escape and worried about how to free so many people from captivity. The girl offers to free the remaining captives and says she's glad the heroes arrived in time to help. A little girl asks to be shown what to do to help free others. The heroes celebrate their success, especially Patra, who is praised for her actions. The group notes she is one step closer to becoming a lady. The group is relieved that everyone has been freed and prepares to deal with the red coyotes that still pose a threat. Patrick says he's intimidating and shows confidence in his abilities, but the other characters seem skeptical. Patra encourages the girl, saying she can do it if she is strong enough. The grill exudes confidence. The heroes agree to find a divination device to learn more about future events, then return to Gris, emphasizing the mission's importance. Locke asks Grisick to look after the children and says Raylan's little sister is with them. Grisick smiles and agrees to help. Grizzly offers to help but hesitates slightly, revealing confusion and uncertainty. The merchant says he contacted relatives in the royal capital and sent one of them there, and the girl adds that she misses her older brother. The man asks about something, and the heroine replies confidently that everything is fine, thanking him for his help and stressing the importance of their joint efforts. With a serious expression, Gris says tomorrow will be fun and hints at the events to come. Locke surveys the building and realizes they only need to be ready at 6 p.m. for the next day. He feels pleased because they have an advantage. View of a large hall with several tables and people chatting and drinking, creating an atmosphere of celebration or an important event. Two people talk, one raises a glass to toast, while the other listens attentively, indicating a formal or ceremonial setting. The heroes talk about where the creature auction will be and note the large turnout, underscoring the event's importance. Gris tells the hero he always shows up for deals over 100 million and says there is no need to worry. The auctioneer announces the start of the creature sale and welcomes everyone present. First slot holds a male member of the Dragon God race with a starting bid of 100 units. Bidders are pushing prices higher. Varys agrees to help Locke win the auction. The hero sees Gris place a 500-unit bid, surprising the other auction participants. The auctioneer declares the winner with the highest bid of 500 units and asks whether there are any other bidders. Locke agrees that 500 units is a fair price compared to the creature's market value. Gris confirms that 500 units is a fair price, especially for the Dragon God race, which is unpopular because it is hard to control. The man jokes that everyone expects him to act that way because he's known as a rich, spoiled kid. The auctioneer presents the next lot as one of the brightest sea pearls, hard to catch because it is a fighting type. The Mermaid Queen takes the stage, drawing surprise and admiration from the audience. Gris places a 100 million bet, showing serious intent and willingness to spend substantial funds. Gris, one of the influential players, appeared at the auction, surprising and unnerving the other participants. Bids keep climbing, with one bidder offering 130 million and another 120 million, showing intense competition for the lot. Gris abruptly raises her bid to 300 million, surprising the other bidders and showing her determination to win the auction. The auctioneer asks if any more bidders will raise their bids, but everyone stays silent, so the man wins with the last bid. The trader announces the winning bid of 300 million, declaring the auction and trading closed. Gris claims to be a rich man's son, asserting he is superior to the other bidders, and Locke thanks him for his help. Other participants agree it is time to settle the score and show they are ready for the next step. Chad mentions Mr. Grizzly, showing he plays an important role in current events. Chad thanks you for helping make the auction a success. Focused on writing, Gris is preparing a document, likely a contract, while Chad asks for it. The man in the long coat says he will grise his question if he learns more, showing he wants additional information. Gris asks about the fishermen attacking the city, suggesting recent events or rumors could be important to the current situation. Gris is surprised to learn that most of the creatures for sale are illegal, highlighting how serious the problem is. The merchant claims Chad kidnaps orphans wherever he goes and forces them into slavery, citing his reputation and methods. Gris says he has studied the magical divination device, showing his knowledge of the subject. With a serious expression, the character says everyone is trying to look innocent and calls out the group's suspicious behavior. Chad scolds Mr. Gris for being rude and says testing the magical device is not reassuring, making clear he doesn't trust Mr. Gris's actions. The girl looks worried or angry, probably thinking about the situation or preparing for the next step. Gris says that after the kidnapping, the girl was kept in a basement with other orphans, showing that Chad committed serious abuse. Chad says he's glad Gris backed up his words, though he expected a similar response, and notes that only the townspeople trust him, emphasizing his local popularity and authority. Gris says Chad missed something. Chad discovers the girl's name is Nayuda Louise, the daughter of a ducal family, and this surprises the others. According to the girl, Chad kidnapped and held her in a basement, which points to serious charges against him. Nyuta further reveals Chada instigated the White Wolves' attack on the city, adding serious accusations to the earlier ones. Chad is shocked to learn the family is the Lewises and wonders how anyone there could have survived. The girl reveals a tattoo on her neck as proof that she is Duke Louis's daughter. A tattooed coat of arms is visible on the girl's body, confirming she belongs to the Louis family. They see the coat of arms on notices and ask what the symbol means. The girl explains that the coat of arms proves her descent from the Louis family. Gris explains that each aristocratic family uses its own secret dye to create these tattoos and warns that not all family members know about it because it can be dangerous. Gris is confident that everyone's true identities, status, and origins will soon come to light. The merchant debates whether the Duke's daughter or a common slave trader can be trusted. Tension fills the room as Gris orders Chad to surrender and makes clear how serious this is. Chad looks surprised and confused by recent events and the actions of the other characters. Armed men surround the main characters, creating a tense, dangerous atmosphere that suggests an imminent confrontation. Chad sounds surprised and annoyed, saying every guard in the city serves him. Smirking, he calls Gris a stupid rich man, showing contempt and self-righteousness. Chad tells the others to be careful and warns of the consequences if the negotiations fail. Locke tells Shannon to stay put and watch the situation, showing he knows where Chad is headed and will likely take further action. Gris opposes leaving Shannon alone, saying it is the wrong choice and stressing the need for teamwork and everyone's safety. Shannon uses a weapon to attack the enemy with fury, creating a tense and dangerous encounter. Actively defending herself against the attack, the girl shows fighting skill and determination to face the threat. The characters react with surprise and alarm to Shannon's powers. Admitting she trains with Fenrir, the heroine highlights her martial arts training and experience. Surprised, Shannon reacts when she learns Locke called her cute. The character greets the heroes with a friendly smile. Discussing the slave's story, the heroes note one of them says it is long, showing how complex the situation is. The man shows prepared mermaids and special containers, making clear he is ready to sell or use them. He thanks Locke for his help, showing he feels indebted to him again. The hero is surprised and grateful when he learns someone wanted to thank the dragon for its help. Surprised, Dracula asks why the mermaid costs 300 million, and Locke confirms that it does. The dragon spoke with disgust and anger, saying he could not accept that his race, the dragon gods, is worth that much money. Locke asks the dragon to return the mermaid to the sea, making the urgency clear. The dragon agrees but says the hero abandons him cruelly, highlighting the emotional strain. The hero finds himself in a difficult situation while trying to capture the queen of the mermaids. Gris tells Chad that running away won't work. The traders demand surrender and say they have a witness who can back up their accusations. By saying he wanted to hear others, Chad showed curiosity or enjoyment about what was happening. The mustached character warns that the witness's testimony would be unpleasant, but only if she stays alive, implying she is in danger. A fisherman swims in the water, creating a chaotic and tense atmosphere. Chad and Locke face each other, one smiling while the other looks serious or worried. A figure in a hat and long coat shouts that it is time to take revenge for all the humiliations, signaling a conflict. Fishermen surround Chad, creating a tense, possibly hostile atmosphere that the man himself did not expect, since he had sent those fishermen into battle against the main characters. Chad points at Pedro, calls him the enemy, and understands what is going on. The heroine warns that if he were watching Pedro, he would be sent to prison, stressing the serious consequences of his actions. Chad reacts with surprise and asks why the mermaids are helping the fishermen. Confident, the girl says everything is fine and that her group knows what the enemy is planning, stressing that their awareness of what is happening could be key to their strategy. Angrily, Shannon says Chad turned the fishermen against the mermaids, accusing him of treason and saying he will pay for it. Chad insists he will not let things go as planned and is ready to step in and change the course of events. Frightened, the man is probably reacting to the snake's sudden intervention. A tense situation unfolds on the ship with the heroes on board. Chad asks for help, his voice tight with fear and anxiety. Locke reassures the mermaid queen that she should return to her people quickly, remaining confident and determined despite what is happening around him. The queen announces she will follow Locke, showing loyalty and readiness to help. The mermaid will give her throne to her daughter, so the daughter can follow the main character on his journey. The queen of the sea creatures smiles and asks the hero to be the girl's friend, offering her friendship and stressing her wish to cooperate. Locke agrees the slave contract is no longer valid and offers to discuss it with the other group members, showing his concern for a collective solution. The girl beside him looks surprised but trusting. Suddenly, the queen proposes marriage to the hero, leaving him surprised and confused. Locke refuses the marriage proposal and allows the girl to join their team. The queen says she looks forward to working together and that she is now just Marrow. A hooded figure appears, his face completely hidden. Saying Lydia with a serious expression, the girl reveals the name holds an important memory or connection. On the moonlit shore, two people stand, and one in dark clothes explains to Lydia that the scientific works were stolen and that there is nothing to it. The hooded woman says Lydia went mute during their separation and that this was even more convenient for her, leaving her listener bewildered. The woman declares that eternal darkness will come and vows to do everything possible to silence Lydia forever, raising the stakes. The fight between the two girls erupts without warning. Lydia lands a heavy blow that sends out loud bangs and small explosions. The woman backs away but stays on her feet. Concerned, the woman says Lydia must be badly injured despite her strength. The woman suffers intense pain as powerful flames, described as the endless flames of hell, rain down on him. A strange figure suddenly appears as a skull surrounded by magical symbols. Skull introduces himself as Damort, who is Lydia's master. The situation stays tense, but she remains calm and confident, and that worries the woman. The woman is stunned when she hears the name Damort, unable to believe such a powerful being stands before her. Damort says she had the scientific papers stolen on purpose to force the heroes to return them, and promises another fight if they refuse her demands. Seeing a mysterious skull-shaped figure she calls the Great Sage, the woman reacts with surprise, asks why he is there, and shows concern about his appearance. Reese finds it ironic that Lydia's student is also involved in stealing scientific papers and says she's grateful for it despite the odd coincidence. She turns to the hooded figure again and asks if she can ask him another question. Lydia asks why a woman would need to resurrect a demon. The hooded figure denies creating the demonic sphere and says it already existed, surprising the interlocutor who tries to understand what is happening. Despite her doubts, Lydia believes the woman is telling her the truth. The heroine asks Reese to help her out. Lydia points out the heroine's magical abilities and potential, but warns that the act she committed could lead to severe punishment. She urges the heroine to use her time in captivity to grow and to do research that helps people, stressing the need to reflect on her actions. Reese seems surprised and worried, but accepts the mysterious character's words, and Lydia says one can trust the Great Sage who gives such wise advice. Sent to prison for violating slave laws, taking part in a rebellion, and other crimes, Chad sits in his cell, worried and deep in thought. A few days later, Reese is investigated, harshly punished, and given a long prison sentence, but she still seems surprisingly happy. Ryland and his sister contact relatives to discuss their next steps. They agree to live together and form a new family. After being manipulated, the fishermen gradually rebuilt their relationships with the mermaids. The heroes see the city calm again after all that happened, and Gris agrees the situation has settled. Gris thanks Locke, says all success comes from Locke's efforts, and notes the townspeople now know Chad's true identity. Together, people and creatures completed an important task, showing it was possible only because they shared the work, carrying loads and handling many tasks. Grateful, the hero thanks the merchant for his support, and shows respect and appreciation for his help in a difficult situation. In a dark, mysterious place, something happens just as the heroes talk about their exploits and successes. A mysterious figure grows concerned and says the situation has become too serious even for him, his reaction revealing the danger he faces as he casts a spell. Now a dragon appears, sealed inside a crystal.